Hey, everybody, I'm Mike.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Seth.
Yes. And this is the Board Game Rundown, and we are live from our basements because we cover games from the ground up. We have a very special guest with us today. It is Seth Hiatt. He is the owner of Mayday Games, Sleeve Kings, Imperial Publishing, and even another one you acquired recently. Welcome, sir.
Hey, how are you guys? Nice to be here tonight.
I'm really excited that you're on. Obviously, I have not shut up about Ahoy Kitten for like 6 months ever since you guys sent us one. Because you guys put a flyer out like on or somebody did on a like a Facebook reviewers and media group, and I was like, even if everybody else hates this game in my group, I know my family will play this game, and then it's like totally worth, because I will do like a review with my daughter if it's like, if the guys don't want to do like a kids game or something, I'll do, but I love it and my kids love it. We'll go do it. And it didn't matter. I didn't have to do that because we all were bananas for that game. Also, awesome. You guys have Dead Man's Draw, which is another game that I don't ever stop talking about it.
There it is.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, I see it. Yeah. Right there. Yeah. And then when we were talking sort of like leading up to the show, and you're like, oh, and I also have Sleeve Kings. I'm like, holy crap, Sleeve Kings is like my favorite place to get sleeves from. No BS, because you guys do the bundles. So like, I just go like for Heat. Mike, you remember I was sending you and Bob messages of like, hey guys, I just got all the sleeves for Heat. And they're like, and it's like all in one spot, like ready to go. Boom. They show up. They're great. Super excited. So
yeah, people really like the bundles. And it's also nice for us when we're just advertising, when there's a new game that comes out and we say, hey, let's put a bundle together. It's got 3 different size sleeves. You need 2 packs of this and 4 of that and 1 of this. It's like, it's so hard to know that and to figure it out. It's like, why don't we just put a bundle together? And guess what? It's like, it drives people to our website immediately, So like when Wormhaven came out, or I'm sorry,
Wormspan. Yes.
Wormspan. Geez. When Wormspan came out, that's the next one. I didn't want to. Who knows? You'd be surprised. When Wormspan came out, they everyone was on BGG saying, "Hey, there's nobody with 57 by 57 millimeter sleeves. What can we do?" And we're like, "Oh, sweet, we'll do that." And we within a week, we had them being produced, and we airmailed some in, and we got them in stock. And it's grab a bundle, super easy. And if anyone ever Googles Wormspan sleeves, that's the first thing that comes up because no one else is offering a bundle for it.
So, yeah, crazy. Again. The bundles are so good because like I'm a lazy gamer. I want to bling out my games, but I want to do it like the easiest way. And I don't want to have to play Sherlock Holmes. And okay, so I need these sleeves and these sleeves and these sleeves, especially when games have multiple sleeve sizes or unique sleeve sizes.
Yeah.
And because then if you do it and you're wrong, then it's like, well, now I've got this weird shaped sleeve for.
It sucks for you when they're wrong, but when they're wrong for us, we've sent out 50 bundles and we find out, oh, that sleeve size doesn't actually fit. Then we have to change all those and send out replacements. It's not ideal. That has happened a few times. A lot of times we have a Kickstarter and it's like, oh, it didn't actually have 13,051 cards, had 14,000, and it's like, okay, we're short a few. So
yeah, just a few here and there.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
But anyway, that's my Sleeve Kings rant. Or I love it. It's a really good website, and I was about to get myself in trouble because we started talking about it again, and I was like going through the site, and I'm like, oh, I need sleeves for that game. I need sleeves for that. Like, dang it. Okay, hold on. Like, calm down. Don't load your card up yet.
Yeah.
I don't want to I got to space out my board game related purchases so as to keep my wife happy. So,
yeah. Makes sense.
But
you gotta monitor that.
Right. But it's a very useful tool for people like me. Like, hey, all right there. I'm like, and the other bad thing is I walk around with my phone and I'm looking at my game collection going, okay, I don't think I sleeved that one. And then I'll pop it open. And it's like, okay, not sleeved. Do you guys have it? Oh, you do. Damn it. Okay, well, put that on the list.
Yeah, we have a Google sheet we try to keep up on too that has, I don't know, 15,000 games on it. It has what game fits what sleeve. So if you ever need to, that's linked in on our page with the top of the page on the sleeves main page on our website. You can click into that and just Control F and search for any game you want. And we get requests constantly on there. Hey, add this. Hey, this is wrong. Hey, this is this many sleeves. And we go in about every 6 months and update it and add several hundred games. And it's a huge pain in the neck, but it's a really good tool. Whenever I jump in there to look at something, I see like 6 other people on that spreadsheet sharing it, looking at it, just trying to.
Oh, right on.
Then you're like, okay, well, like, got to keep it up then.
Yeah. So. Hey, I mean, people are using it, and if it facilitates and drives business, I mean, that's the name of the game at the end of the day.
Yep. Yeah. So, keeps the lights on.
That's right. That's right.
Speaking of that site, I of course have it right here, maydaygames.com. You guys just wrapped up another successful Kickstarter here with these bags that are now open for late pledge.
Correct. Yeah, we just finished about a week ago, I want to say. And yeah, it's interesting because I've seen a million other people's bags, and I just thought, man, we just need something. We want to offer them. I've seen a lot of them that are really high price points or that are really cheap, or I kind of want to hit that middle ground where they're good, but also not too expensive. And then also the big difference for ours is they're priced pretty well at $149 retail. We had them for $99 on the Kickstarter, and we had a really good response. And shipping of $10, by the way. We're not like destroying the
that's not bad.
Shipping thing. It's only $10 shipping, and they're not that huge. And it's like about 4 pounds, I believe. But what's nice is that we're actually going to be able to get them into retail stores too. Like at that price, we'll offer them through distribution. And most bags, it's like direct to customers, one and done. You may have some on a website, and that's it. But these, we want to get them into stores. So we're hoping that stores and distributors will pick them up as well, and that we'll be able to get them out to more people in their hands. So,
well, they look sturdy as all get out, which is super important for a game bag, because I've had straps go out on game bags that I bought before. And,
yeah, we put a whole ton of weight. We just filled it full of card sleeves, and we actually drove around on our forklift and put it on our guy Dave's back and had him jump off of some walls and stuff, just trying to see if we could, where the weak points were. We did actually find, I think there may be a video further down that shows, I think it ripped on one of the zippers originally, and we kind of tweaked that and fixed that. So yeah, we've gone through, man, we've been working on this thing for about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And just trying different iterations and adding new stuff. And we're actually, even after the Kickstarter, we had 3 more little things we wanted to tweak on it just to improve it. We had a little place to put in a key holder, and that very first inside flap is just blank, and we added some pen holders there. I think, I can't remember what the third one. Oh, and then the side pockets, we added some more stretchy elastic and like a tie down kind of pull on it, so that if you have something that's maybe a little loose, you can tighten it down. It won't fall out that way. Just little things that it's like, why not do it? So yeah, we're really excited about it, and it should be dang sturdy. That's the whole goal, is sturdy. I have a couple other brands bags. I won't mention them, but they've all broken. I think that's not necessarily their fault. Maybe I put too much weight in them, or I thought it was a tougher bag than I thought it was, but they all end up carrying somewhere. So
don't we all do that? Like load up our game bags? Like that's what I do.
My luggage is the same way. I'm not blaming the luggage maker. My luggage, eventually pops or breaks or a wheel snaps off. It's just wear and tear. So we're trying to change that with this, that it won't destroy. I do have one suitcase I've never been able to break, and I use that one as my favorite suitcase. But man, this bag hopefully will be the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and they look great too. It seems like your Kickstarter did really well. So congratulations on that.
Yeah,
and
it did like 130,000. So it wasn't. Man, there's 2 or 3 other bags that hit about a few months ahead of us. I'm like, I wonder if we had done it before theirs, we would have done better. It's not terrible. I'm not ungrateful. It's great. It has enough to get it off the ground, get several colors, and produce enough to have some inventory. And so we're super stoked about it.
I do really like these extra utility pouches in here. I'm all about functionality. So just little touches like that, I think, really show attention to detail.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we bought several other bags and took all of our know-how and put it in front of blind test groups to see what they thought we could do to improve it. The thing on the back where it says you have the play mats, you can actually put those into those cup holders and strap them down. Just stupid things like that are really simple. It's like, why isn't anyone doing this?
Yeah, seriously. There's no good way to move or store playmats ever.
Yep. And I see the question there about do you ship to China without overheating the credit card? Yeah, the shipping price to China is the same as US. It's $10 because we make them in China. So
nice.
China, Hong Kong, I think, and South Korea. Maybe that's not South Korea. Anyway, I think there's a few places in there that are $10 shipping. So it's really cheap shipping.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So of course, we always give our guests the opportunity to pick a topic. And of course, you said you would just be willing to do a Q&A session, not just from us, but anybody in our chat. So it is a good opportunity to say hi to everybody that's with us. We have a really great crew of regulars with us. Steph was actually coming up with all kinds of great questions in our Discord, and I actually wrote all of them down. So awesome. Jazz is with us. Nix is with us. Bob, he's one of our co-hosts, and he's giving me a hard time for actually getting our intro right. Wayne is with us. All of our regulars are with us. So if there's anything you guys would like to ask, of course, let Seth know. That's why he's here. In the meantime, I'll pull up some of these questions.
It was really funny because we had people asking questions in the Discord. We were like, hey, give us questions. We'll ask them. And Bob, our co-host, is like trying to answer the questions. And I'm like, Bob, stop it. They're not for you. And he's like, oh well.
Nice. That's funny.
I think it was like, and I'm guilty of this, where you read like half of a text or half of an email and you think you know already and you just start to answer.
You don't read the whole thing.
Right. Whoops. I've totally done that.
Let's start with the easy one, the origin story. How did you get into games? When did you know you were a gamer? And then how did that translate into, you know what, I want to start my own publishing company? How did that all start?
Okay, well, I was always into games growing up, but I was into like Risk, Monopoly, Sorry, all the kids games I had as a kid, right? I loved Risk. I always thought I was a better dice roller than other people. And I had the strategy down, go take Brazil and South America and then stretch out. I loved that game. I always did. And so it kind of got me into other games like diplomacy a little bit. And I loved chess and just loved all games. And then I think I want to say it was maybe in the late 90s. I want to say about 95, 96. I was on a father-son camp out with my kid. No, this is before my kids because my oldest was born in 98. So anyway, I started playing Settlers of Catan, first time ever. That was my very first Euro-style game. Like, well, this is a totally different thing. I started playing Cities and Knights, 5-6 player expansion. I started playing Ticket to Ride and all the old classics. And every time I play one of those, like Stone Age or any of those, I just was like, I really loved them, you know? And so I kind of got into that. And I actually got a degree in accounting in 95. So I got my MBA, my CPA. I was doing the business model track and I was working as a financial analyst after working for a Big Four accounting firm for 3 years. And in, let's see, 2001, they offered me the CFO position. And it was been really good money for my young age guy, but I had to move to Boise. And the old CFO looked like he had shriveled up and died, working 60 hours a week and closing the books every month. And just didn't look like, I love being around people. I'm more of a salesy kind of guy. Accounting was just a little too dull. So I said, instead of taking that job, I'm going to quit and go out on my own. So from 2001 to 2008, I sold on eBay full time.
Oh, wow.
And I was eBay's power seller. We did a bunch of sales on there, but we were like master replicas, authorized licensed distributors. We were for like Ruby's costume company and did a lot of DVDs and Time Life CDs, all kinds of stuff. And we did some board games too. We became a distributor for one of the, we had a little board game store in our warehouse there here in Utah. And we started this little store and we'd sell all that stuff. And we sold board games and we started getting more into the board games. And then in 2008, the game, when Meg Whitman, the CEO of, and I think she was the founder of eBay, stepped down, they changed their commission structure from listing from like $2 listing fee and 2 to 3% commission to like nickel listing fee and then like 8 to 10% commission. And so my margins were like 10% all this resell stuff. So overnight, the eBay business I've been building kind of went away. So in 2008, I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't want to go back into accounting. And I had done one product. I had done a Catan board. It was like a cardboard 6-fold board for the Catan game that had, it was like a 2 thickness boards you could put the pieces in. Back then, it just had like a tile border.
Oh, right.
It was always sliding around. You couldn't move the game. It was kind of a pain. So I made this board, and I made a bunch of them in China. And I didn't have a game company at the time. I was just selling them on trying to get into that. That was in 2008. And then from there, this is such a crazy story. So I was trying to get into the catalogs for the distributors. And I'm like, well, every company has a 3-digit code or like a 3-letter code that they're in. And all the Catan stuff was with Mayfair Games. And their little 3-digit code was MFG. I'm like, well, I want to be right before them where people can see these. They're not Catan boards. They're not licensed as Catan, but they are Yucatan adventure boards. We're not using their IP. We're not using their graphics or art, just a similar product. And so I'm like, we got to be MDG right before them in the catalogs. I'm like, well, what can I make my company name as MDG? I'm like, okay, we'll do Mayday Games. And in fact, we'll even have the shtick that if there's a product out there, like a game that doesn't have something that it needs in terms of accessories or another part, kind of like the board we were doing, that people can send a Mayday out to us and we'll try to make that product.
Look at that built-in gimmick.
Yeah, that was the gimmick. And that was also the same year that Dominion came out and won Spiel des Jahres. And before this, there were only really card sleeves for like Magic the Gathering and like baseball cards, right? So Dominion has this 59 by 92, 59 by 92 millimeter sleeve size that no one was doing. So this guy, his name was Craig Borden. He emailed me one day, and we were so small, we had almost no sales. He's like, hey, why don't you make a card sleeve for this game, Dominion? I'm like, I've heard about Dominion. It's getting a lot of popularity. So I bought a copy of the game. I played it, 500 cards, $40. And I'm like, wow, this game is just shuffling cards. The cards are getting worn out. I totally see this. So I'm like, okay, we'll make a sleeve this size. So I started going to China, trying to figure out how to make the sleeves. And that's how the sleeve thing was born, was, okay, we're going to make the sleeve. We'll call it Euro sleeves because we can't call them, Magic the Gathering size. So we made up the name Euro sleeve for that size. It's on my kitchen table. And then and that was our only product. We went to Origins that first year. I want to say it was 2010. And we had, and then Agricola came out, and we had these little animeeples. When Z-Man brought Agricola in, they said, hey, the first 1,000 copies, if you pre-order, this is before Kickstarter, they said, we will include animeeples. And everybody after that gets cubes. Well, the game became a huge hit, and the first 1,000 people got animeeples, and nobody else got them. So we're like, well, we're not obligated to that. We'll sell the animeeples. So we sold a little pack of some wooden meeples for $15. And we started making those. And we started making sets for other games like Stone Age and other games. And kind of just grew from there. But then I had no idea the sleeves would become such a big thing. We started just doing different sizes. And all the names of all the sizes we have were just made up on my kitchen table. Just, hey, okay, what are we going to call these? And making them up. And now everyone uses the same names we have, which is fine. You can't really copyright those, but that's kind of how Mayday started. And then we started getting into games and doing our first couple of games. And we made some really stupid mistakes. We made a whole bunch of really mediocre games because I thought every game was amazing because I hadn't done this long enough.
Sure. So. I don't know who Facebook user is because your name doesn't show up.
Hey, I love Facebook user.
Yeah,
Thank you, Facebook user. So that's how it started, though. It just all started kind of with a dream and a hope and a prayer to get things moving. And then it got, one really interesting, there's a couple of interesting things we did to start. Hey, there's Daniel.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah. So one thing we did when we started was when we started the sleeves, the Euro sleeves, I thought, well, how can we get these in front of people? How are people going to know about them? And people have been complaining a little bit about the card quality of of Dominion. And so I talked to Jay over at Rio Grande and said, hey, you have this problem. What would you think about me putting in a coupon in your game for 25% off our sleeves? And that will solve your problem. If people complain, you can say, hey, buy the sleeves. And it's good advertising for me. And he's like, sure, I'll do that. So for a couple of years there, every copy in the US had this 25% off coupon for sleeves. And I think that's what really got us on the map. I was thinking about, should I offer to pay him? Should I do some kind of commission? Should we do some kind of mark? I'm like, let's pitch it as a problem solver for him before you do it. Because I had no money. Like we couldn't afford to pay anything. And so he was really helpful for us to do that. He was a great, great guy getting into the industry, helping us out. So that was one of the really interesting ways that we got kind of on the map and started getting known.
Well, nothing like mutually beneficial arrangements, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many times where I will open up a game and you start, you open up a game, you start going through the cards, whatever, and you're like, probably need sleeves. You might even, some games I play and you don't handle the cards a ton. It's like, I don't need to sleeve this. I'd rather sleeve something else that needs it more. And then there's games where you're like all over the cards nonstop. And I just think about people playing my copy, in sweaty hands, and if they're eating, my brain just goes like, oh, I want my game to last as long as it can. It's a good thing if you can wear out a game, but because it means hopefully you played it a million times. But
yeah, my original copy of Ink and Gold back in the day. I mean, it's such an important thing to keep the back of those cards clean because you can't know what they are, right?
Yes.
And we had my daughter had kind of bent one of the cards playing as a kid, and it kind of like had a tell. I could tell what the monster was, right? So I'm like, you can't do that you got to have sleeves for some games, and then where you have the like Secret Hitler or some of those games, you got to have pristine cards that are unidentifiable as individual cards from that. So I don't sleeve all my games, but the ones like that, I think it's a no-brainer.
100%. I actually had friends. I was like, it's a social deduction game. And I had some friends. I think it was actually my wife, so I couldn't even be that mad, but kind of ripped one of the cards a little bit. And I'm like, no. And so I went, and it was cheaper to find and buy like dark, solid opaque sleeves, to to replace the game. So we did that. But that
makes sense.
Bobby's throwing out suggestions. Talk to Andrew Styles about sleeves for his new game, Wine Cellar.
I'm writing that down.
Wine Cellar will be published by 25th Century Games.
Yeah, that.
By who?
Sorry, Mike. 25th Century Games. So Chad Elkins. They've got these not tarot size wine bottle sort of cards.
Interesting.
Very unique card size, and they get shelved about every game.
Yeah. If the game is unique and it has enough followers, then we're happy to make it. The litmus test is how many people have rated it and reviewed it or say they own it on BGG.
Oh, sure.
Like, I feel like about 20 to 30% of people sleeve their game. So if they have about 5,000 or 6,000 total people that I think have bought it either through Kickstarter or wherever, then I feel like it's a good number that we can at least sell through a single run of them. So our minimum order is 2,000 packs of any one size. And if a game only needs one pack, that's 2,000 copies. So you got to have sold about 5,000 or 6,000 before we're really willing to do a specific size for that. But there's a lot of games that have sizes that it's a no-brainer. And we do this a lot with other companies too, where if they have a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding project and they want to add on like sleeves, we'll work with them together either to bundle our sleeves or to make their own brand with us to help them to offer those. And they're not that expensive, and it adds a lot of value to the backer too. So we do that quite a bit.
Definitely. I can tell you the games that I have bought that came with sleeves, I was so excited. I'm like, really? Like, okay. So that and that's kind of interesting to hear what your metric is for that too.
Yeah. And we've looked at doing colored sleeves and colored back, and then like the anti-glare and design ones. And I've looked at other people's anti-glare, especially. We've thought about a lot of that, but I've seen a lot of companies. I've talked to people, and they just don't sell that well. And the colored ones and the full print color are about 4 or 5 times as expensive for us to produce. And they're you have to do 10,000 of them as a minimum order quantity too. And there's just never a thing that's worth it. We have a few colored sleeves we made over the years, and they take forever to sell through. We had like 8 or 9 colors, and we have like 2 left now. They just don't sell. So
I mean, the only colors that I buy are just black. If I don't buy like the ones that just the regular clear sleeves, if I buy something with like the solid back, it's always just black because it's easy.
I get it for like Magic the Gathering and those expensive cards, the living card and collectible card games. But if you have a game you've developed and you have put all this effort into making the back of the card art so pretty and like you want it,
right?
Why cover it up? Or why pay 5 times the price of sleeves to then duplicate that same art on a sleeve? I don't get that. Like, just make it clear and they can see what you've got already printed on it. You've already paid to print on the back of the card.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's my opinion. I mean, we're not opposed to doing it for specific companies that want to, but once you tell them the pricing and be like, you could do this for 1/5 the price on a clear sleeve. Why print color on it?
No, yeah. The only time that it makes sense and is like if they're running a thing where you get the sleeve and the sleeve has some kind of unique to the game art on it. You know, like I'm thinking of like Oceans from North Star Games. Like,
oh sure, yeah,
their deluxe edition came with sleeves, but the sleeves were like, you know, the backs of the cards. You know what I mean? And then Fantasy Flight Star Wars, the deck building game, also like had like a limited run where they came with sleeves, and it was basically the box cover. You know, like the Luke and Vader with the lightsabers. Like, okay, those make sense, but
crazy.
So, Seth, you have published mostly lighter games. What goes into your decision making of like what games you're going to publish?
Yeah, generally we like, you know, I sit there, especially places like at Gen Con and other conventions, and we have our little family friendly booth, and you walk by, you have a little game like Ahoy Kittens. You can explain it in 3 minutes and play it in 10. And I love pitching those quick games. It's like an elevator pitch of a game. And you may pitch that game 100 times and sell 10 of them. Who knows? But I just see other companies that have this brain buster game that's a 3-hour game. You have 4 or 5 people playing it. It takes forever, and you may sell a copy or two. I like the volume of selling the price point of lower priced, family friendly games. And a lot of our games, you can walk up and not even know the rules. You can just look over someone's shoulder and be like, oh, that's how you play it. You know, oh, I'll tell you how to play Crokinole or Dead Man's Draw or Bamboo Bash. Some of those super easy. I'll say, okay, this game, Catapult Castle. Yeah, it's beer pong for kids. Done. There you go. That's it. Like super easy, simple mechanics, you know? So
I've got that over here too.
that's what I really like making. It's not even about the price point as much as it is the rules and the quickness you can have. I'd rather play, I don't know if I'm just impatient. I'd rather play 5 or 6 games in a night at a game night than I would play like 1 or 2 big ones. And then everyone has a chance to win, and it's more fun. And I think one of my earliest memories was playing Get Bit. I think I have it in the back.
Oh, I've got Get
Bit. That's one of our earliest titles from 2011. We had the license for years. We don't have it anymore. But when I sat down and played that game, it was like the last game after a bunch of brainbuster games that left me just tired and had a headache. And then I played that for 10 minutes. And I laughed my head off at the stupidity of it and all the stupid ways they pose their little characters. It's a goofy, stupid fun game, but it's one that you can really laugh about and just leave the end of the night with a smile on your face, you know? So I just love those kind of games.
Yeah.
So that's like Bob, do it.
Oh yeah.
Bob, our co-host, is segueing off. He's a night shifter. So he tunes in while he's at work. We're all huge fans of the game. And I'll actually tie in a little story with Daniel Cervantes, who, of course, ran Tabletop Adventure Fest in Warsaw, Indiana. We were playing Ahoy Kitten at this. So we bought a booth there, and we were playing Ahoy Kitten. And, of course, everybody's loving it, having a blast. And then after we played a couple games, we start walking around, and Bob found another booth that was selling Ahoy Kitten.
No.
I'm like, where?
Not Bob.
You.
I found
it. And, of course, somehow Bob ended up with a copy and not me. I don't know how that is.
I found it. I ran back over to the guys, and I'm like, there's a copy of Ahoy Kitten over there. Because somebody had picked one up at Gen Con. They had bought some copies, I think, at Gen Con. And then Bob's like, go over there and buy it for me. And so I ran over. So I think Bob was just faster than you, Mike.
I still don't have a copy, but to come back to that, that is available now, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been out for a few months now, maybe 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, we fulfilled the Kickstarter, and it's available in stock. If it's not available, don't let them tell you it's because we're out of stock. We have copies. You can buy them from our website or Amazon from us directly, or you can get them. Should be your local game store. Should be able to order them through the distributor, though.
But yeah, that's again like your booth, the Mayday Games booth, is like always one that's dangerous for me because I do enjoy heavy games and really do like playing them. But a lot of times I like to play games with my family. You know, my wife, my kids, my in-laws, and everything. And a lot of the games that you guys publish, carry, and put out are like, well, those are games I can take to Thanksgiving. You know, and I can get them played because nobody wants to nobody in that area wants to sit through a 30-minute rules teach. You know what I mean? Where we've played Dead Man's Draw twice, you know, in that amount of time, you know, and things like that. Awesome. So there's just a huge appeal. And also, like, I really enjoy, another thing I really like is that those games are really great filler warm-up games for when
If you're waiting for players to show up, right?
Waiting for players to show up. And those kind of games, I also really enjoy playing with people I've never met, because you want to you can really kind of gauge like how they do, I like get an idea of their personality playing those kind of games.
Especially a take that kind of game or a press your luck game. I remember playing Ink and Gold with my brother-in-law years ago, and he's like, I hate that game. I never win. I'm like, I've played 5 times with you and you've never left the dungeon. It's a press your luck game and you've never ever quit. You can't win if you never leave. It's like always pushing. Like, come on, dude, you got to take your money sometime.
Right.
It's like you never bank your fish in Ahoy Kittens, right? You can't win if you never bank.
Bob famously has gotten 0 points in Ahoy Kitten at least once. We'll always remind him of that.
I've done it as well. I feel like we've all done it at least once. Couple fun comments I wanted to tag. Daniel, again, who actually does family therapy, says he uses the games with kids, which is pretty awesome to hear.
That's awesome.
I haven't seen I Heart Sleep in our chat before, but
that's my daughter's best friend, Jack. Hi, Jack.
I've never connected with a screen name more.
Yeah, I do also Heart Sleep.
I also love sleep. And she is in China, and she's curious if you have a distributor in Asia.
Yes, we do. We have VFI carries our stuff. Jeremy carries our stuff over there in China, and then we also have Broadway. Longshore has an arm in Hong Kong called Broadway Games, and they carry a lot of our stuff over there. And then we have several distributors in Japan as well. Something maybe you didn't know is I actually lived in China for 6 years and speak Mandarin, and I talk to the factories directly, and I really try to put our distribution over there. My brother-in-law is actually selling our products on Taobao, like the Chinese eBay over there.
Oh, wow.
And on Temu, too. He started selling on Temu. Crazy.
Oh, okay.
And my wife is Chinese, so yeah.
So does that help you? Do you think that has helped you, like not having the language barrier when you go and you're dealing with or interacting with?
It's been awesome. When we first started doing games and sleeves and everything, we had to go through middlemen. I went through a third party out of Hong Kong that basically just took the Chinese factory and marked it up 25%. And I just had to pay that because I couldn't talk to the factory direct. I didn't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. So when I first got into the business in 2008 and 2009, I was like, what am I going to do to take over the world with this company? So I said, I know what I'll do. I need to get good at manufacturing and cheaper, and I need to sell more games in Germany. That's where everybody sells, right?
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll move to China for 3 years and then get good at that and get fluent in Chinese. And then I'll move to Germany and get good at that. And then I'll take over the world. So in 2011, I sold my house, the cars, moved my wife and 3 kids to China and lived in China for 6 years. It wasn't enough to get fluent. Chinese is a lot harder than I thought it was. I'm still not fluent by any means, but I am a lot better than I was. And my wife and I only speak Mandarin at home, so that helps a lot.
Okay, good.
So it's definitely a lot better than it was. And most people say it's really good compared to whatever, but I never did get over to Germany. It's like, man, China's too cheap and too fun. And my cost of manufacturing dropped so much from doing that. It was so good. And I've actually been able to help a lot of other publishers. Kate, my wife just got home.
I was going to say, now he's just showing off.
Yeah, a little more. Yeah, just showing off a bit. She just got home from a friend's house. And so it was a really awesome experience, but I never did get to Germany. So that's kind of the backstory of my experience there. And I've been able to help a lot of other publishers that I like who are using for manufacturing. And if they're using somebody that's a markup person that's just extra margin, I'm like, dude, come over to China with me. And I've had groups of publishers come with me. We've had like in 2017 or 16, I think it was 17. I had 9 other people with me, and we went to 3 different factories and just toured around China and got them direct contacts with Chinese factories. It was really good. So that's been really beneficial, but my costs have come down so much because of that. So Kate, say hi.
Hi.
Come say it. She's my wife. She's got home. Say hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. See you soon. Oh, bye. Yeah. Anyway, so that was really fun. But I really like helping other people out. When I first came to the industry, people helped me out a ton, and it just was life-saving. I got to tell you one little story about Jay Tummelson from Rio Grande. I don't know, he's very active anymore. He's an older gentleman now, but I mean, he was older than to me. But I remember my first Gen Con or Origins. I think it was Gen Con. I remember going by him to go pay my next year's fee, scraping together the money for my booth. We were just scraping by. And I remember overhearing him as I'm getting in line, talking to one of the organizers saying, your entrepreneur rate is too high and you don't have enough booths for these new companies. That's too expensive. They just can't, they can't do this. They need better access to this industry because people like me are going to get old and leave, and we need new blood in the industry. And I was like, here's this guy who's made it, and he's sitting there fighting for guys like me just coming in. And it was just the most altruistic thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, this is my competition? How is that? He's over there fighting for us. And it's like, it's such a unique industry that way, because I feel like all of us are like all in the same boat. We're all struggling, all trying to make money and trying to do things. And when a new Kickstarter comes out that makes millions, it's like, hey, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? That's that many more people that are registered. And when Killer Bunny or Exploding Kittens came out, I'm like, sweet. That's like 10 million more people that have signed up, and they're going to at least see my product. They've at least signed up for Kickstarter and know what it is, right? So it's really cool. I love that about this industry is people are always trying to help other people. And I try to pay it forward that way too.
And that's when you made the Exploding Kittens sleeve bundle?
I wish. No. They skyrocketed right past us, right? Like, what happened? I've been fighting all this time, and they just put up one little project, and now they're in Walmart. Come on.
It's a
double-edged sword. I'm really happy for them, but I am secretly a little envious too, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, but you're right though. The thing about the industry is I know so many different publishers and and designers, and they're all friends. They all work together. They all try to help each other out. They, if the royal you, like if somebody's out there and they're going to be the one jerk, that's the problem, is they're going to be the one jerk and nobody's going to want to work with them. Also
it's really interesting because there were some, when I first came in, I felt like there were some people who were kind of jerks, or they were like snobby about the fact that they had it made. I won't name company names or people, but man, I was like, who are these people? They're like the A-listers. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't know. I felt like just like this noob little guy just scraping my way, looking for scraps, and just like totally unaware of how things worked. And and now all the guys that started with me, a lot of these smaller companies have gotten really big, and they're a lot of them passed me, which is fine. But it's really cool to see kind of that changing of the guard and the people that are kind of the leaders of the industry that are just so down to earth and helpful and kind. It's great. When Eric Price from Mayday Games got made, he's the head of Gamma now. I'm like, giddy up. This guy's awesome. I freaking love Eric. He's such a good guy. So, and he's very pragmatic, down to earth. He just wants to be successful and help others to be successful. So he's great.
Yeah, I like Mayday Games. They put out some really good stuff.
And we talk all the time about just how down to earth so many people are in the industry. Just it's so rare to have a bad experience.
That's awesome.
So I got to ask you, because you've got them coming up. You've got Crokinole coming up. How did you get into Crokinole? Like, because that's a unique thing in the hobby.
That was another just crazy happenstance story, right? So Crokinole is like chess or something. There's no IP on it that you can't produce. Anybody can make a Crokinole board. So in 2010, my brother was married to a Canadian lady, and her parents were having an anniversary, like a 50-year anniversary or something. And they're like, hey, you're in board games. You have a little game shop. Why don't you help us get a Crokinole board? I'm like, okay, sure. So I went to distributors. I'm like, wait a second. There's no Crokinole boards in the U.S. I'm like, where am I going to get these? So I started looking. I'm like, geez, the only place to find these is like $300, $400, $500 up in Canada. This is ridiculous. I'm like, I can do better than that. So I bought 2 or 3 different companies' Crokinole boards, sent them to China, and said, make this cheap. I'm like, look, I want 80% of the quality at least half the price. It's like more of a third of a price from now, right? Like, so that's how we started in 2011. We did our first Kickstarter to see how we did it to like 30 grand. We had enough to make like 1,000 boards, and that's how it started. And we've done this will be our 8th crowdfunding for it. And it's coming up. It's coming up. Yeah. Season 8. So, and I think it's our 9th total board. Anyway. So yeah, we've tried to keep it. If you go anywhere else, you're going to pay $250, $350
easily.
Plus shipping from Canada usually. There are a few companies in the U.S., but it's $99. And in fact, 2 years ago, the cost to get a container from China in 2022 was about 20 grand for a 40-foot container to the U.S., which you can only fit 950 of these into a container. So it's about $10. Let's see. Yeah, well, it was about $20 a board just to get them delivered to me, and so we charged shipping of $50 for the game. So it was 99 plus 50 shipping to the US. And this year it's like, hey, the containers are only $5,000 now.
They came back down, yeah.
Yeah, so now I'm paying $5 a board instead of 20 a board to get them delivered to me. So we're actually doing it for less this year. It's 99 plus 40 39 shipping. It's like, hey, we have less cost, we can afford to do it. Yeah. Let's crank these out. And those who want an intro, this isn't an heirloom hand down to your kids, leave it in your will kind of board like some of these, Tracy boards or some of the super high-end $500, $600, $700. If you go to Etsy and look for crokinole boards, they're $600, $700, $800, and they're amazing. They're beautiful.
No.
But if you want to dip your toe in and you don't own a crokinole board, or you just want to play casually, I'll tell you what, $100 is a great price point. And we don't make as much on them, I'm sure, as those guys, but we also don't have the labor costs because we're paying Chinese manufacturing shipping instead of custom woodworking. So
yeah, well, crokinole boards are kind of like, they're one of those things you can pay as much as you want for one. You know what I mean? Like they're the top end stuff. Yes, looks amazing. I have been at conventions and you see awesome ones. I have a homemade one. Like that is fine. Like I let my kids play on. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to spend a lot of money on a board and not care about it. You know what I mean? Like the homemade one, my kids can they can goof around with it and everything and learn and stuff. But I'm not like rolling it out to conventions and be like, hey, who's playing crokinole? Like, no. Not going to do that. But yeah, it's really awesome to have a nice entry point because
mid price.
Yeah, because even if you, like you were saying, it's very easy to just spend $250 right off the bat, $250 for like a decent crokinole board. But like depending on the kind of board games you buy, that's at least 2 or 3 board games, at least, but probably 5 board games, Yeah.
Yep. And my favorite customers, those who buy ours and they say, this is an amazing game, we really love it. And in a couple of years, they're like, I'm ready to go to a more expensive board. I want to spend $500. But you know what you're getting into then. And they buy it and they're like, wow, this is definitely a step up. I'm like, 100% it is. I own a Tracy board. I think it's great. But if I'm going camping with my friends and I want to roll a board out and by the fire on the picnic table, I just throw one of my boards in a bag and I'm not that worried about it getting a little beat up. And I'm not worried about a kid playing all over it like having his grubby hands on it because it's a much cheaper price point. I don't get nearly as stressed about it. So I hope, and it's for sure, it's a lot of people to get into the game that wouldn't have had it otherwise. We've sold over 10,000 of them in 10 years. So,
wow.
And that's containers and containers of them. The last Kickstarter, we shipped over 3,000 boards out. And it's a huge headache to do, but man, it's really nice to have them put in there.
There's a friend of the show, Sam Stockton. Do you know Sam, or is he joking? Is Sam?
I don't know him.
Oh, okay.
Not that I know. Not that I remember. So if I do know you, Sam, sorry. If not, come say hello to me at the next convention. Right?
He's from Mayday Games. He's got a couple games out. Well, one published and another one that's filling on Kickstarter. Hopefully, will be showing up in the next month or two. Nice. Super knowledgeable guy. Yep, designer and publisher. Great dude. And then Jeff Irving from Weathervane Games. What's up, man? Good to see you. Jeff. He's out your way. Jeff's out. I think he's like out Montana.
Oh yeah. There's a surprising number of publishers here in Utah. You've got Tim Fowers, and you had TMG was out here. They've closed down. Michael from TMG's out here. There's a couple others I'm forgetting. Oh, and then Ryan Lockett is out here too. So there's quite a few. And then let's see, Michael Coe from Tiny Epic. Him and Nathan, they were from here originally. They live in Arizona now, but they get up here quite a bit. They still have a lot of family here. They went to school up in this area. So a lot of Utah connections. It's surprising how many. You'll see Grandpa Beck up here sometimes. We have a little convention up here called SaltCon. Surprising number of people show up from out of state. So it's just a little small convention, but it's a lot of fun. We really have a good time out here. There's a nice little board game group that Ryan Bruns started called NUG, Northern Utah Game Group. It started in his basement as like, I don't know, 8 or 10 people. And now it's like in a church and they get, 100 or more people out every once a month. So,
wow. That's very cool. It's crazy how stuff can grow, but it's always exciting to hear about like really big gaming communities, like, oh, like really thriving. And then, it's probably not an accident that all these designers kind of came out of that, and publishers kind of come out of the area, because if they have all this access to the games and they're getting to, participate and get in there, and then you're like, oh, wow, I can make a game, like I already know all these other guys. I can bounce ideas off of them, and, and they're going to help you.
There are dozens of people out here making games and designs, and they have a designers group in Salt Lake too. It's pretty cool.
That's how they ended up in China with you. I don't know the Nintendo nerd, but
maybe he's talking about the publishers.
Your publishers,
yeah.
So, have you? Because I don't know the answer to this. So, have you designed your own game, or thought about designing your own game, or any desire to design your own game?
I can spot a good game, and not even very reliably, but I can't design. I've never tried designing. I just love the marketing. It's a lot like, there's an old, I don't know if you remember, you're probably, it's before your time. There's a game called Lemonade Stand on the Apple IIe back in the olden days, and you set your price of lemonade, you set your marketing budget, you set your this and that, and then you have some variables of weather and determine how many people buy your lemonade, and you're just trying to maximize your money. And that's what the game publishing industry is to me, is you do your marketing, you set your prices. It's like playing a game.
So you've got your meta game now,
just that it's real money, and if you lose, you lose hard. It's a lot harder to win. I'll say that the biggest problem I think most people do is they overproduce.
Oh, sure.
Overproducing a game is the death of you. You got to store that thing. You got to figure out where to put it, and you've tied up capital into the production of that game that you didn't need to. That'll kill you. I've had a couple of games where, even if they're amazing games, if you overproduce, man, it kicks you hard. It's hard. It's rough to store them and not know what to do with them and to get rid of them. That's brutal. So overproduction is probably the biggest company killer there is, in my opinion.
So you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, because it might be an awkward question, but I'm just really curious. What has been your best game, and what is the game that didn't work like maybe you thought it would?
No, I'm happy to answer that. It's been long enough that the pain's not as severe.
Sure.
I think our best game has been Dead Man's Draw. We're about to release it. We're actually, this year, we're going to put it up on Kickstarter here in the next couple of months, probably, is a 10-year anniversary edition of Dead Man's Draw.
Nice.
So I was looking at that a couple nights ago just to see how many copies we produced, because I got to pay Starduck Entertainment's the company that they released an app, and then the app was so popular we licensed the app to be a board game. Like, I
play the app all the time.
Yeah, that's like the opposite of how it usually works. Usually it's a popular game, then you make it an app. Well, this is already an existing app, and they're like, so they actually did a Kickstarter for it the same year we did. They had whatever their goal was, maybe 10 grand. They got like 9,800 or something. They didn't reach it. Oh. So I reached out to them and said, can we make this? And they're an amazing company. They know how to make games, but they don't know how to do, physical games. So we kind of did that. But over the course of the 10 years, we've sold over 100,000 copies of that game.
Woo!
That's not all in English. That's licensing to Russia and Spain and Taiwan and Greece and just all over the world. We've had a lot of licenses. We've probably done it in 15 languages.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
We sold a lot in the US too, but I
bought 3 copies.
Yeah.
I wore out one copy. I replaced it, and then I gave one as a gift because I had some family that had played it, really liked it. And they're like, where can I find this? I'm like, I got you. I'll just get you.
It's such a fun game, and it's $20. It's like such a good game.
So cheap.
But we're doing the 10-year anniversary. Will have a bone die in it, a 4-sided bone die, and it will have 12 extra cards for like 3 different extra scenarios you can add to the game to give it just another level of interest and new stuff. And we're going to have it in a little metal tin that's similar to this one here. It'll be similar to this, where it's got the rule book on the inside of a cover. Yep. And then it's just a 10, but you open it up and you can see the front of the rule book. So it'll be this size 10, but it will also have foil and UV coating on the cards. And we'll have a limited edition for the Kickstarter, and we'll have a 10-year anniversary edition that's like the standard edition. It'll be either $20 or $25. We're not trying to money grab it. We just want to really kind of celebrate the fact that this game's been it's our best seller by a lot.
That's great. I love it. I'm happy to hear it.
We've had a lot of other really good hits, like Viceroy sold a ton. We've reprinted it a few times, and we had this Garbage Day game right over. Oh, it's over there. Is that one sold over 10,000 copies? Oh, you even got one of the Kickstarter editions. Yeah, we did over 10,000 of that.
What's funny is I didn't even think about this being your game. I had it out because I was messing around with it with my kids like a week ago.
Isn't it a unique design? I love that game.
Yeah. And now I'm looking and I see Mayday on the front and it's like, oh, Tim's pandering. But no, seriously,
yeah. And let me talk about my least, the biggest flop we had. Hold on, let me grab it. I keep it by my desk as a memory of what not to do. So this is our very first game, 2009. It says on the back here, 2009. This is before Kickstarter even existed, and I had no idea how to make this game. So it's called Space Junkyard, and it's appropriately named. I mean, I'll give it that. I think we did 1,000 or 1,500 of them, and it's just clunky. The pieces it's a third-party factory before I went to China, and so the pieces came moldy. It's probably got mold in this box if I open it. It's my last sealed copy, so I keep it in my house. But it was such a slugfest to try to sell that game, and I'd be demoing it at conventions. I hated playing it.
Oh no!
It's just not a fun game. It has some really clunky rules, and it's just, I don't know. It's not my favorite. At the time when we made it, was our very first game. It was a print and play on BGG, and someone started a thread that said, "Hey, someone needs to make this game," and it got a lot of love. And it's not. I'm throwing the designers under the bus a little bit. It's not that bad, but it's not as good as some of our other games. Anyway, it was our worst selling game of all time for sure. We would never have considered reprinting it. And even though it was popular on BGG at the time, it just didn't sell well for us. So,
well, sometimes it doesn't translate. If they've already got print and play, why do I need to spend the money? Like I've already, because a lot of people like print and play is not just usually printed out on your printer paper at home. Usually a lot, when people go and they get that stuff made, if they care or they're that excited about it, they usually find ways to kind of spruce it up and do some things. And
I think there's a psychological element to it where if you go to the trouble to print out a game and make the components, you're forced to like it. Mm-hmm. It's like buying X model of car, whatever car that is that you personally hate. If you've bought a car, you own it now. You got to talk yourself into why that wasn't a bad decision. And I think people try to talk up the games that they already decided to do. If they had to make it themselves, it's even worse, right? So I feel like that's some of it. You don't want to go, oh, this game sucks, I shouldn't have bought it. I got to tell people it's a good game. I feel like there's some ownership there. I don't know if that's a psychological thing or not, but man, that's how I felt about it. So
yeah, no, I mean, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Thanks for your candor. When the question popped in my head, I'm like, well, maybe not the best question to ask.
No, it's fine. I'm an open book about it, and if there's something uncomfortable, I'll tell you. But I mean, I have made plenty of mistakes in this industry. I made some really stupid mistakes getting started. And there was a time there where, for several years when we first started out, where I was making less than some of my employees. And I'm just trying to feed my family. And desperation makes you do stupid stuff. And we didn't focus as much as we should have on customer service. We cut some corners, or we had some scandals where we, did things like ship crokinole boards. The very first set of crokinole boards we did in 2011, we actually had a guy who we sent a board. It was a damaged board, and we sent it to another customer trying to save some shipping, or almost sent it to another customer. In the end, that didn't happen, but it was enough that just the thought of doing that was just, it put a real black eye on the company for many years. And we still struggle with customer service because, as big as people may think we are, we only have a few employees. And I work from home, and we have one little warehouse, 2,000 square foot warehouse. Anyone who does any warehousing knows that's insanely small. Like for a company our size to work out of that size warehouse is ridiculous. So
I mean, that's
we're just a small little company, and we're not
by comparison.
Yeah.
So this kind of just segues into a question we got in our Discord earlier, and somebody asked if you could change one thing about something that you've done for the company in the past, what might it be?
Yeah, I think it has to be kind of a tie between that. And there was another company that a couple of my ex-employees started called Empire Board Games. At the time, there was Tanga and a bunch of other companies trying to compete in the board game industry. And I could get company stuff at wholesale, and I could sell my products even cheaper. And so these two guys were just starting out and wanted to start a business. So they started a company called Empire Board Games. And I ended up putting my name on the registration documents because they were still underage and couldn't do it. They were only 17 at the time. And so they said, we have no affiliation with Seth. It's not part of Mayday. And then someone was smart enough to look it up on the Utah entity registration and see my name on it, of course, because, this is back in 2011 or 12, I think. This is, more than 10 years ago. But also the more attention to customer service and being brutally honest with people about what to expect, and learning quicker to under promise and over deliver. Like I wanted to show people the world and show them what a great game it was and pitch them a product to just make some money off of it. And if the game doesn't stand up by itself, then it's not going to matter. And I just wish I'd been more upfront. Now we try to say, okay, the Kickstarter's going to deliver in 9 months, but I'm already printing the game and I know I can do it in 3 or 4. I mean, that's just so much better. Like,
if it shows up early, you're golden. But if a boat gets stuck in the Panama Canal, you're not screwed either.
You have some leeway there. You got wiggle room. And there's so many times where I'm like, oh, we can do this in 3 or 4 months. We're already printing the game. We're almost ready to print. It's like, well, we'll just say 8. There's no harm. And then it ends up being 6. It's like, wow, we would have been 2 months late.
Oh, Sam's got a question for you. So in your opinion, as a publisher, what point do you stop upgrading the base game and move into making a deluxe version of the game, especially concerning Kickstarter / crowdfunding versions?
Yeah, we still struggle with that. I don't think there's an easy answer. There's no good answer. We've done both. We're like, we had a game we just recently did, Sanssouci, which is done by Michael Kiesling, right? Azul. Mm-hmm. And we were like, well, do we do a limited edition with a Kickstarter only exclusive content with some upgrades? Or do we just do the game and just get it out? And we're like, we really just want to do the game. So we didn't do anything extra. We just said, this is the Kickstarter. It's just the game. Take it or leave it. We did a lot of copies. It sold really well. It's great. But we could have done that, but it would have added complexity, would have added another SKU, would have pushed back the production probably several months just to add that stuff and get it all done. Mm-hmm. And it just adds extra lines of complexity. So it can be very effective for sure. But a lot of times we just go, you know what, let's just do the game and not even the stretch goal thing is such a marketing thing anyway. If we do it, we're just like, okay, well, this is the game we're going to make. Now, what can we pull out to launch the Kickstarter so that if we do fund it over a certain amount, we can have some goals to unlock. Oh, we're going to upgrade to 310 GSM cards. Guess what? Everyone's doing that anyway. Oh, the box is going to be thicker. Come on. No one's making that thin box. It's just a marketing thing. And it's just, I don't know. I kind of got sick of doing that. And it comes back to the whole thing. I regret not being more open and upfront with people to start with, starting out. And so I'm just like, let's just do the game. We're not going to do the stretch goals. Okay, you want a stretch goal for Crokinole? Okay, for every 100,000 we bring in, we're going to reduce your shipping costs by 5%. That's it. We got volume. We're going to save a little bit on making it. Let's just pass that savings on to you.
I can't imagine anybody be pissed about that stretch goal.
It's like, look, we're already making it as cheap as we can. We're not trying to gouge you here. So, but I mean, a lot of people make their bread and butter. They did, if we had a limited edition and it's this and that, and you're fear of missing out and you got a mini in there and you could maybe sell 1 million copies, who knows? But I don't know. I just feel like it's so much overproduction. But the other secret little thing about it, the extra stuff you throw in there is probably $1 or $2 of extra production costs. It's not that much, but they can then sell it for $80 instead of 50. Like you make a ton more money on it. You do. But I just feel like it's such a cash grab. I just don't do it very much. So we try not to.
I think early on in my game collecting career, like, now like 13 years ago, all of those stretch goals, Kickstarter, they sounded amazing and they were like the best stuff and the reason.
And it's the only chance to get it this way. And it's going to be so unique when you bring it to the table, right?
Yeah. And then CMON, and I buy a ton of CMON games, but CMON has really burned me out on like a ton of stuff because of that, and some of that stuff. So I really do find myself often drawn to a very straightforward Kickstarter. Now, if it's like, if there's like a standard edition and a deluxe edition, depending on what's the deluxe and the price variance, I usually go deluxe just because I like to have nice looking games. I'm a collector,
Yeah.
But if my Ahoy kitten didn't come with actual kittens, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying, like, what random upgrade would you do for Ahoy kitten? But no, I think that like there's something to be said for just a game that comes out. It's got nice components, and that's it.
The other thing that happens is if you put in a game that's a deluxe version, and you've got say you've got a $40 version of some simple game like Ahoy Kittens, and you've got a $25 version. Okay, well, if you put that up on your Kickstarter, you're basically competing against yourself. You're pushing people into a lower price point. If you don't offer that lower price point, they're going to buy the $40 version. Like I don't want to compete against my premium version by having a standard for offer. And a lot of people don't buy the standard. It's just there just for looks and to put it into distribution later. But man, I don't like the idea of putting it in there and competing against myself on the Kickstarter page. That's why we don't ever offer $1 pledges. You can pledge $1 anyway, but I'll never put $1 pledge level. Help us out and join the fun, dude. I don't want your buck, man. I want you to either back the game or not. And you know, I don't mind if you back it for $1 just to remind yourself that it's going to end and you want to upgrade later.
I've done that so that I remember to.
That's fine. But just to jump in and say, "Oh wow, you're helping me funding your $1." Sorry, it's not going to help.
Golly, thanks.
I'm like, I don't want to offer that as an option. Either buy the game or move along. You know. So,
is there? This is a question I thought of real quick. Is there a game like, because people come, I assume they pitch you games to publish. Is there a game you've regretted passing on? Like, is there a game where you're?
Yeah. When I don't know, do you know Tim Fowers? Tim Fowers Games. He did. He's done. Okay, so one of his
hardback, paperback.
Yes, paperback. He did there's a airplane game. He's done a lot of amazing games. Before he even got into games, he was designing for Amazon, and he brought me this little game called Walkstar, and he pitched it to me. And I was like, nah, it's just not for me. It sold a ton. He ended up licensing it to someone else, sold a ton. And I wished I'd gotten that game, even though it wasn't like my favorite game. I wished I'd gotten it because I knew it would have been popular. That's the only real super big game that I've ever passed on that I regretted. Most of the other ones, they pass on us. It's not that we pass on them. They're like,
oh, yeah.
Here's the game. It might be a really good game, but they're going to give it to somebody bigger than us, right? And that happens a lot in the industry too. Like the same thing happened with Get Bit. We sold out for, almost 10 years. And then it got too big for our britches and they went to Greater Than Games instead, which is fine. But that happens sometimes in the industry too. You want to shop it around and you don't feel like this little company can do a good job of it for you. So we try to do as well as we can. And the games we do have, we put them out there at the conventions. We're always trying to get them out. We push them. But in the end, they got to evaluate that as a designer and say, is this worth it or not? And, you know, we want to pull the license and give it to somebody bigger, you know? So
now go on, Mike.
Yeah, Mike.
Well, if it's a continuation of your previous question, go ahead, because I'm going in a different direction.
No, I was just going to ask about because the Ahoy Kitten was a Japanese game that you guys signed. And
I think it was from Taiwan. I think it's actually from Hong Kong. Yeah, it's from Hong Kong. It's out of Hong Kong by Broadway. So we license it from Broadway, and just for the English rights, North America. We try to pitch it and try to get worldwide rights on a lot of things, but sometimes we'll be like, look, give it to us. We'll put a good Kickstarter together, and then from that, you'll see other people, and we'll sell it to, you know, Germany and Italy, and then suddenly you'll have licenses. That's what happened with Viceroy. Was we got the license for the U.S. and English rights, and they're like, just ship it to the U.S. I'm like, I want to ship it worldwide, and then other people will see it, and then as we get other companies interested, we'll refer them back to you guys. So the license holders in Russia, they were like, yeah, they got a bunch of licenses. I don't know how much it was off of us, but anybody who asked were like, sorry, we only have US. You got to talk to these guys directly if you want to do the French version, the Spanish version, German version. So that happens a lot in the industry too, where we want as big a rights as we can, but a lot of times you just get English.
Was it the same theme and everything? You just had to convert it over, or did you retheme?
It was originally a different game. I think it was a reprint of another game that had to do with
Crossing.
A jungle. Yes, that's it. Something Crossing. Okay. And it didn't do all that hot, I don't think. But Ahoy Kittens, I like the theme a lot better. You know, what's wrong? Nothing better than pirate cats, right?
Listen, I throw that game on the table. I was literally Easter weekend. I was in Kentucky visiting family. They're not board gamers like I'm a board gamer. And they sit down. They're like, oh, we're going to play some dice games and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's fun. Have you guys played Ahoy Kitten? Have you played Cockroach Poker? So, like, those are my go-to. Like, let's just get people in, and we started playing those games, and I had cousins, like my cousin was cussing at her grown child because of Ahoy Kitten. You know, don't point at that tile, quit pointing to that.
I want that one.
Yeah, same thing, you know, and it's just everybody's just having a great time, you know what I mean? And then it was like, where can I buy this game? Where's this game? And I'm like, okay, you know, job done.
Amazon.
You know, like you can find it here, you know, go get it. Same thing like with Cockroach Poker, like we were playing a ton of that. I know that one's not yours, but
no, that's a fun one though. Yep, I played it.
But I love those kind of games for that scenario specifically, because next time I roll in there with games, they're going to go, oh, Tim brings games that we like. So they're going to sit down and, you know, maybe they'll listen to one that's like one step heavier,
I love the game mechanics of that, but the thing I love about that game is it's easy to play because you have one choice. That's all you're doing is choosing one thing. You think about other popular games like No Thanks. Okay, do you put a gem on or do you take the card? That's it. You got one choice. Ink and gold. You're going to press your luck. You're going to stay. Dead Man's Draw. You have one choice. Any idiot can choose that. And so even lucky kids can win. Same thing with Get Bit, right? Like there's only one choice. So it's a simple, easy mechanic, but there's a lot of depth to it and second guessing people. And I love those kind of games. I'm always looking for one choice games. I think they're great.
Okay, Mike, what was your question? I'm sorry.
Well, you kind of somewhat answered it because Ahoy Kitten is essentially a reprint of Crossing. What goes into the decision process of reprinting a game or reprinting an out-of-print game or even bringing a game from another market across the globe into the U.S. market?
Yeah, there's no slam dunk answer to that, unfortunately. It's I looked at when we were talking to Broadway about the game, and we're like, okay, I went and looked on BGG. This is like what you guys would do too if you're trying to decide how many people have bought it on BGG. What does the forum feel like? What are the ratings? And does people say that is some of the down stuff because the theme kind of sucked in some way? And then they pitched us a new one. It's like, okay, that's nice. Let's test it. We played it as a group. This is a Essen either last year or year before. It was year before when we first saw it. We took it back from their booth and played it at night. We bought some pizza, and all the people that were there for Mayday Games with us there in Germany, we ate some pizza and played that game. And it's like, who cares about all that stuff? Because in the end, it has that je ne sais quoi, right? Where we were all laughing and having a good time. And that's the main thing about a game is can you capture that feeling of really enjoying it, even with strangers, right? And so that was the decision for me. And it's just, there's no metric of saying, okay, well, if I have this rubric of how many I'm going to sell and what margin, and man, it's all a gut feeling. But
there's something to be said for like when you're at a convention or a gathering, where there's like a bunch of people playing games and one table is just really animated and it's, and it's like, what are they playing over there? Like that sounds awesome.
That's the first level, and we decide we want to do it, and then we go to the trouble to build a Kickstarter around it, make a video, and do the marketing, and there's a lot of resources to go into that, and then you launch it, and then once it's launched, then you really get to because Kickstarter won't lie to you. You're not going to put that up there. It's either going to go well or it's not, right? And that's really the thing that saves your bacon, is knowing whether or not you should produce a game, and then also how many copies you should make, because Kickstarter is brutally honest with you. Hey, if the game only sold 500 copies on Kickstarter, I better be making more than 1,000 or 1,500 of them. And if the game did 10,000, I better be making 20. Like it tells you what you should print. And so it takes a lot of the risk out of it for the publisher. That's the most important thing for Kickstarter. Why we'll always use it is because it tells me how many I need to make, because there's no cheating that.
Sure. So Sam wants to know, in your experience, how much your board game sales are coming from distribution, conventions, Amazon, online sales?
Yep. So conventions is nothing. It's just it's more marketing and trying to break even is what that's what we do. Unless we're like Lorcana at Gen Con and we got a line out the door, we're not going to make enough to even most years even cover our expenses.
Right.
I'm flying 10 people out to Indianapolis. We have 4 hotel rooms. I'm trying to find a 5th, and the booth costs over 10 grand. We're in almost 30 grand before we even get there. So if we crawl our way out of that loss by the end, then we're happy. So the sales on conventions is really nothing. And then the distribution, when we first got into this, I would say it was 70-30 or 80-20 distribution to direct sales in general. And then with COVID, there was about a 6-month period in there when most stores were shut down and they stopped paying the distributors. And most distributors either shut down or just stopped paying us, or they stopped ordering. And so there was a 6 or 8 month period in there during COVID where no one was buying our games and it wasn't going through the channels. But it all of a sudden bumped up our online sales between Amazon and our direct website. They started going crazy because people still wanted the games, and games actually increased in sales for us over that period of COVID, because I think people stayed home and they're interested in spending time with the family. And there's only so many things you can do on the TV and your devices in a day. So our sales improved a lot in terms of gross volume, but also our margins were better because people were buying directly from us instead of through a distributor and through a store. It wasn't, we didn't set out to have that happen, but because of the nature of COVID and people's buying, and I think people's buying choices also went more online at that point too, right? Even if there was a store open, people were like, I'm getting used to just buying on Amazon. I'm buying everything else on Amazon. Why not buy this too?
Yeah.
And so our sales have kind of flipped. I'd say it's probably 70% direct to customers and 30% to distributors now. But then we also have the Kickstarter, which is the big unknown. Last year we only did like 2 smaller Kickstarters, and the year before we did like 4 or 5. And so that can be a pretty big swing when you got like Crokinole, we did the Kickstarter did 350K, and then the add-ons and the shipping, and then other people was another 200K plus on top of that. So that adds a lot to the bottom line and helps us a lot with the gross sales. So it kind of skews the numbers from year to year. But yeah, I'd say that's the short answer.
So gosh, I lost my question. I had one and it just left.
Percentage of sales?
Yeah, it was something about sales, but I can't remember now. It'll come to me in a minute when Mike's talking, and I'll try not to interrupt him.
I got a more fun one, maybe more of a hypothetical question. Have you ever considered publishing any IP games? And if you were to publish an IP game, what IP might that be?
I've thought a lot about IP games. I know some of my friends have done them, and I've looked a lot about the licensing. And the licenses are just crazy. Like if you get into like NFL or some major HBO show or some, I mean, the minimum licensing is $100,000, and so you're betting on something big. I did have a licensing game I absolutely wanted to do, and I was so close. We actually had a contract for a while. It was I don't know if you're familiar with Brandon Sanderson. There is a game we developed for Way of Kings, his first book.
I'm reading the fourth book in that series right now. So yeah,
the first 2 books just destroyed me. I was such a fanboy, and he, Brandon Sanderson lives here in Utah. He's probably a half hour from me, and so I had a contact through some people I knew. We got a contract. We actually developed the game. It was going to be a minis-based game where you have the shard blades and you have the dueling, you have the spren, you have all kinds of cool stuff in it. It's fully developed, but it's just on cards and no art yet and no real products. And about 6, 7 years ago now, this is a long time ago, too bad for us. The next step was to pitch it to his team and see if they approved of the game to start working on it. But it kind of drug on. We spun our wheels too long on it for sure. It was already kind of running into overtime. And the person they sent over to our booth to look at it to approve it was some new hire. I don't think he'd ever read the books. I don't know.
No.
But he didn't have energy. He wasn't interested in what we were trying to pitch, and it didn't look very professional. I think he was just, I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I'm not saying Brandon Sanderson wouldn't have approved it if he'd seen it or if he had. I don't know, but it fell through, so that never happened. I wanted that game so bad. I have the final product developed. Anybody out there who knows Brandon, hey man, I got a game ready to go. It's amazing.
Oh my god!
And it's by a couple of well-known designers too. It's a really tight, solid, awesome, epic game. It'd be minis, totally different from anything we've ever done. It would have been a $2 million Kickstarter, I'm convinced. It would have been awesome. So,
well, I mean, his books, he runs Kickstarters for his novels. It's the most successful Kickstarter on.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I wrote a few novels during the pandemic. Here's 5 novels direct, $32 million. Thank you. Or 43 or whatever. That was amazing. I'm a huge fan. My kids are huge fans of his. I have an Audible account that I share with some friends in my family, and we have over 1,000 titles. But I'm a huge fan of fantasy, historical documentary stuff, sci-fi. I love sci-fi. So if I go after like a sci-fi title I really like, I would love to do like a Bobaverse or I don't know, a title, some kind of title that was a fantasy title that I love. That'd be amazing. There's a series I'm reading right now called Dungeon Crawler Carl. I love that book, and it'd be really fun to have a D&D kind of style dungeon crawler based on that book. I think somebody's going to do it, and they're going to make a lot because it's really popular.
I'm telling you what, the minute somebody makes a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
that was one of my earliest books. I've read that series so many times. I love that series. So funny.
The
read that in high school.
That's 5
yeah,
books.
the trilogy of 5. Long and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah,
great series too. That'd be great. But I just don't think it's worth the risk for us. I've seen a lot of other companies that I know what they spent, and even if the Kickstarter does 6 figures, they lose money. And I'd rather be a smaller, dynamic company that makes a profit than a bigger company. This is publicly known information, but if you look at Siemens, they publish what their profit and loss is, and I'd rather have a smaller amount of sales and make some good profit off it than have $30 million in sales like they do and then lose $5 million or whatever the number is. It's like, I can't eat that kind of money.
Right.
Okay. Stephanie's asking the small box games. The theme usually comes to us. Usually the game is pitched with a theme, and the theme plays into the decision to make the game or not. And we've also seen a lot of games where I love the theme, I love the art, I love everything about it, but the experience isn't worth the price. Like it's a $50 manufacturing and a $30 experience for a customer, so it doesn't pay off. It's just you got to simplify the components or bring it down, and so I judge that too. But I'd say of our games, I'd say we do maybe 2% of what we see we actually get to publish. Like we just don't do very many games.
Sure. Well, I mean, again, smaller, you need to pick and choose, and be smart about that so you can stay viable.
It's got to be a 10 out of 10 for me to do it now. I used to be like, hey, a 7 out of 10 is good. There's too much competition. You've got to have this game that I am absolutely amazingly in love with to me want to do it.
For sure. So I remembered my question now. So with Kickstarter, you say you love Kickstarter. You'll always go to Kickstarter. Has some of the bigger companies or big Kickstarters that have not been filling because they've had problems, has that hurt you guys, or have you guys felt much of that? Not to throw like Mythic under the bus, but I mean, they're kind of famously the big one right now.
Right. I mean, I've taken a few on the chin too. I backed the coolest cooler, did $11 million and never got my cooler. I lost $200-300 on that one. I backed a few games I've lost, never got them, and a few that I don't know if they'll come through. But I think for us, we on every one of our Kickstarters at the bottom of the page, we say accountability. Here's a Google sheet to every game we've ever Kickstarted, how much it did. Here's a link back to it. You can look at the comments, and here's what we promised it would fulfill. Here's when it fulfilled. Here's our percentage on time and late, and you can judge for yourself. And we've done 49 or 50 Kickstarters now.
That's got to help That's got to help.
Yeah, since 2011. And, I will say, I was watching one of your more recent podcasts. You guys talked a lot about why do these companies still go back to it, and why don't they start their own little P500 system? And when I first started on Kickstarter, this is 2011. I had Get Bit up for pre-order on our website, and we'd sold maybe 3 or 4 copies. And the game's 2 weeks away from being delivered to port. So I'm like, I'm going to put it on this new site called Kickstarter to see how it does. And it sold over 1,000 copies. Why didn't they come to my website? I don't know, but that's 1,000 people I wouldn't have sold to.
100%.
And so I don't know what the special sauce is about Kickstarter, but I'll always do it because you see so many more people. People just won't go to your website and pre-order. I mean, they'll order, but it's 1/10 of the people. So we just don't have the following to do that. And I think we've built a lot of trust. We have had tons of problems. We've done lots of bad decisions with customer service, had some quality things over the years. And, it's been almost 15 years now. We've been using Kickstarter since 2011. And man, that's a lot of time. We've improved, but we're not perfect by any means. But we do always fulfill, and we've never had any question that we would either fulfill or refund your price if something happens where we can't, where you get a damaged board, or we'll always try to make you whole. Like I'm much more concerned with the long game than any one person's, $50 pledge.
And it's funny because I was really naive to the whole, like the crokinole thing that happened where, people got on that and were upset because I guess for me, I only knew Mayday for the couple of games, the 3 or 4 games, the few games and all the sleeves that I had gotten. And I didn't even realize Sleeve Kings was you, but I bought Mayday sleeves before as well. And so when I heard about that, I was like, oh, okay, I'd never heard of that. And then I, started looking at it a little bit. But I mean, also though, right, especially you guys being around as long as you have, and with being into Kickstarter, very early on, right? Because it is Kickstarter 2011 has evolved into a completely different animal than it is now, and I mean, you're bound to take lumps, there's going to be snafus,
and we make stupid mistakes too. Sure, but our second game we ever did was Eaten by Zombies. It's a deck builder game, and it did $40,000, and it was the 3rd most funded board game of all time on Kickstarter at the time. $40,000. To me, it was like life-changing money. I'm like, dude, I'm made now. I can just sit back and rest on my laurels. I've made it. It was crazy. Now that's like, oh, it's crappy. Not that great, but
I hope your funding level was $10,000.
Yeah. Yep. It was crazy. It was amazing. Life-changing.
Yeah,
so I mean,
wild.
it's such a great. What it's done though is it's allowed us to take the risk out of how many to produce, and getting the money up front. We can pay the factory up front. So there's we can do a lot more games than we would have ever been able to do. I don't know how many copies of Crokinole to make. Should I pay the factory and do 1 container or 3 containers or 5? I have no idea right now. I won't know until the Kickstarter. And once that's done, I'll know how many to order. I'll order as many as I need plus 1 container probably. And then I'll have those to sell. The nice thing is,
because you guys have already done Crokinole Kickstarters, all the production stuff is basically there and set up. You just have to say go,
normally,
right?
But if you look at the 2022 Kickstarter we did 2 years ago, we had a lot more damaged and defective boards than we like. It was probably close to 3%, which is way higher than we usually have. And so as awesome as that was, we're moving to a new factory this year. This will be the 5th factory we've used.
Sure.
And I haven't even decided which one yet. We have 2 different ones we're trying to decide on. So we want to get the best one we can possible to make it fit the budget that works, but it stinks to move. Because what happens when you're doing Chinese manufacturing, you send them a copy. I send them a brand new $400 board. Can you make this? Oh yeah, here's the sample. It looks amazing. It's perfect. It looks great, right? And then, of course, when you actually go to production and they send it to you, it's too late to stop it. And it comes and it's something different and you're screwed. Like that and maybe the first time you do it, they want your business and that's great. And the second time it's a little worse. The third time it's even worse. And they're cutting corners to try to make their money because they've quoted maybe a little too low to get your business, or they just are greedy like everybody else. I don't know. But that happens a lot where, and then one year what happened was I actually sent a guy from China to the factory and said, okay, these 3,000 Crokinoles, we're going to put them in 3 containers, sort through them. And he found like probably 200 of the 3,000 that were just not up to snuff. He set them aside. Don't ship these. We reject them with quality control. So we get the first container. It's great. The second container is great. Guess what was in the third container? The last 200. They sent them and they didn't even tell me. I didn't know until the customers got them. Even though we rejected them, we got them.
And you paid for that dang container to come over. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
What a nightmare.
Yep. And what do? Where's your recourse?
Yeah.
So the next time we did it with that factory, we're like, look, we'll do this, but we're taking, if we get a bad one and we can document that it's damaged from a defect from you guys, we're taking the full amount of the pledge plus the shipping out of your bill. We're taking 20% of your payment. We're not going to pay you up front. We're waiting until the very end. And guess what? I had like 60 of these during that one. So 60 at $150, I got $9,000 off the bill. And it stung for them. It took all their profit. I'm like, dude, you can't send me this stuff. So there's when you do quality control, they can still screw you over. There's no assurance they're not going to stuff that thing into a container and send it to you. Because what are they going to do with 200 broken boards?
Right.
That are scratched up and have a bad veneer and that they're unacceptable to me. But they don't want to just go take them out back and shoot them or dump them in a dump somewhere or have a bonfire. They got to do something with them. So they're like, we'll ship them to you. It's not like a board game where the game either it works or it doesn't. You don't want to reject the whole batch. But the Crokinoles, even when they're made in China, they're still handmade. Like every one of them's got to be made by a person. And if their blades aren't sharp enough and then the hole isn't perfectly cut, then it like chips some of the veneer off and it looks totally bad. It's like sharpen your knife, right? So many little things they can go wrong. It's bad. So
that's crazy. That's the thing is like all these things that I would not have considered. It's like, oh, you just order a Crokinole board and it shows up.
Just be able to hit print, right? Just send them an email. Send me 3,000. Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anything that can go wrong will.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Mike, what other questions do we have in the Discord? I know there's more.
Actually, Seth has actually kind of covered a lot of these without even knowing it. Like Steph, our friend in China, she also had asked about where you store games. You talked about your warehouse being too small for Mayday.
Yep. Let me talk about that a little bit.
Please do.
So it's interesting in the industry. A lot of people, if they're selling a lot of games and they're making good margins, they send it to a third-party warehouse, and then they got to pay a packing fee and a shipping fee, and there's administration and storage. It all adds up, and they're doing the same thing you would do with the warehouse, but they're giving the markup for it too, right? They're making profit off you. So we have our own warehouse. It's small. It's super ghetto, 2,000 square feet. But wherever I get a warehouse, I put it across the street from a storage unit. So we have one forklift, and we store extra stuff. I have 10 storage units right now because it's just incremental storage. I can put stuff over there and bring it back. And if we sell through stuff, I can close the storage unit down. I'm paying those month to month.
Right.
So that's one of the secrets for me. But we have our own warehouse here in Utah. We have our own staff. We have a full-time warehouse manager and one part-time and one full-time other shipping person. All they do is ship product all day long and deal with the shipping. But I don't have to pay all the extra overhead, and I have total control over it. So if I want to know if a product goes out or I have to send a replacement part, or, what really kills you is when you're doing card sleeves. If you're paying a per pack fee of 25 cents and you got an order of 10 packs of sleeves, the shipping is going to be less than the pack fee. Like, I can't survive on that. I have to do it myself. So we warehouse it all ourselves, but we're actually in the process of building a larger warehouse, and we're going to rent some of it out to other people because I'm really tired of paying rent. So we just pay a rent in a warehouse, and we do it as cheap as we can. And I am a tightwad at heart, so that's part of why we're still in business. To run this thing, you've got to be a tightwad, and if you're not, you're gonna blow your budget. I'm constantly amazed at how many people spend so much at different things than I would, but I'm still just. In order to keep the business running, you have to never make a mistake that's so bad it's going to close you. And I think that's the biggest one, is being tight. Buying a used forklift 2 years ago for the first time ever was life changing, but we couldn't afford that $6,000 before that. It was too much. So
and like I know personally of someone who was using a warehouse, and it was a big name company, and then when they shut down their warehousing, they lost a bunch of product, and I had to pursue like legal action, and I don't know if they ever recovered any of it. You know what I mean? Because
you're at their mercy. If you have it in someone else's warehouse, you say, hey, this guy needs a replacement. You got to wait for them to do it, and they got to send you the tracking number. You got to have some way to access it. It's never smooth. So I love that. And the other thing is, if I got to go work out, I'm trying to stay healthy, I'm overweight, but it's like, well, do I want to go on a walk or a run or go play basketball? Or do I want to go to the warehouse and slug some boxes and unload a pallet or unload a container? I still get down there. My wife and I have unloaded countless containers ourselves. Like, we're not big enough or hoity-toity enough to avoid that stuff.
Yeah. So it's really, you're in a really good position, I think, right? With that control, with the warehouse and having your own, because again, it just takes out that sort of that X factor of somebody else's hands.
It's never their priority to ship your product. Their priority is their biggest customer or their own product usually.
Right.
So it's just, if they can only ship so much in a day, your Kickstarter fulfillment is not that urgent. Whereas for me, the second I get that in the warehouse, we unload that container, we're slapping labels on that stuff. We're shipping it out immediately. We're getting everybody and their brother and their friends and their daughters and sons to come help us, ship it out for a couple of days till it's all fulfilled. I mean, it's painful, but it's a really nice way to do it, to have control over that.
I used to work in a medical supply warehouse, and I would go, my whole day was just going and picking orders, going to different bins, grabbing stuff, boxing it up, loading it onto a truck for UPS to come and pick up, and drive off to the hub.
We've done that. My wife and I'll go in on it's such a small warehouse. We can only have so many people in there shipping. And if we're like, we have a big sale and we're way behind, we'll go on the weekends, my Saturday, Sunday, my Christmas morning, like, hey, let's go ship. Black Friday, man, my Thanksgiving is always destroyed. We have a huge Black Friday sale and we're always way behind. And so usually that Saturday, Sunday, we're in there slugging boxes till midnight or 2 a.m. And it's a great exercise. It's good for us to connect. And my wife, she doesn't speak a lot of English, but she's a great shipper. She knows SKUs and she knows where all the product is, and she's fast. So, and it saves us labor. So like, why would I go on a walk when I could just be down there working together, listen to some nice 80s music and slugging boxes?
There you go. That sounds good.
I just want to say, as a fellow cheapskate, I appreciate your economical and practical approaches to your business. Very much so, because it's very much a frivolous hobby. Like, it's there's a lot of companies that try to capitalize on the fear of missing out and exclusive stuff that you had mentioned earlier. And as a salesman of 25 years, I've never appreciated that approach. The wait, there's more, and the one more thing, and you can just tell some companies are get things out of their games to make stretch goals, and it's like, well, why? Tell me what I'm getting when I click the back button. That's to me ultimately what matters. But for people like me, that's Now
one other really nice thing about having your own warehouse is all the shipping we pay goes onto my credit card, which goes onto my Sky Miles and my Marriott points and my my Chase rewards and my Amex points. So we're flying 10 people out to Indianapolis for Gen Con, and I spent round trip for 10 of us, round trip $112 for all, not each, total.
Use them points, baby.
That's 447,000 points.
That's how you do it.
And
my wife and I went to Disney on points.
Yep. And the hotels at Essen, we have 4 rooms. It's all free on Marriott for a week.
Wow.
Like when I went last year, we flew Air France, Salt Lake to Paris, and it was Amsterdam for like 12,000 points a person. It was ridiculously cheap. And it's like, anytime I can say, the whole point of me having my warehouse, having all these points, having tons of points because all the postage goes to me, we save so much money off of that because our convention expenses are probably 80% covered with points, which is awesome. Because I couldn't afford to pay the 10 grand for, I mean, you think about $600 a ticket, that's $6,000 in flights just to Indianapolis and back that I saved. So it's crazy.
Sam wants to know what your theme song is to get pumped up.
Oh man, I have a bunch of different ones. I have one that's called Fast. It's just like all my 80s songs, Run DMC and Beastie Boys and I don't know, all kinds of random. I'm an old guy. I'm 51, so I have all these 80s songs I love.
I'm not far behind you.
Yeah. Let me see. I'll pull up my playlist here on Spot. I won't play any of the songs. I'll just show you my library here. Where's my... Here it is. This is one of my favorite ones called Speed. Here's my Speed playlist. I've got it's Tricky, Walk This Way, Song for Dot, Jump Around, In the Summertime, Shape of You, Footloose. Just a whole bunch of random songs.
I think most of those are on my Apple Music playlist.
Just a bunch of random upbeat songs. And even some new ones too. It's just a whole bunch of random stuff. I like The Cure. I don't know. Random stuff. I like the Beatles because my parents raised me on that. I don't know. That's not old, says David. You're showing your age, David.
You had mentioned that you keep the Google Doc of all of your fulfilled Kickstarters at the bottom of your Kickstarter. So is that the same Google Doc you sent me?
Maybe.
That if you shows basically
go to the bottom of either of those the Kickstarters you pulled up. You pulled them up earlier. There was the bag one, the bag one, for instance. Go to the bottom of that. You'll see it under accountability.
Oh, yeah. Do you have that on the 2024 Crokinole page?
I don't know. It should be on the bottom of that one. I don't know for sure. It should be. We're just drafting it up, but I think it's on there. Go to the very bottom under accountability. That's where it is. There's a environmental friendly thing, and there's an accountability piece at the very bottom. It's like a separate section. And we say, we've been doing Kickstarters since whenever, and these are fulfilled, and this one's maybe late, or we're going to fulfill this one on time. We put an updated version, but then there's usually a copy and paste. You have to copy and paste. It's not a link in that one because they won't let you link into the accountability.
Sure.
Was there
looking for this?
Was there a Kickstarter while Mike's looking? Was there a Kickstarter you thought? Okay, no. Better question. Have you run a Kickstarter that didn't fund?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We've done 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5. We did one for Way Kick. It's there's little guys underneath the hockey thing. It's a dexterity game. We did the first one did really well, and we were going to do a second one to bring in the 6-player one. And I was about ready to pull the trigger on a $50,000 container out of Germany to buy that, but we put it on Kickstarter, didn't fund, and I canceled it. Saved me $50,000. It would have been a brutal thing. So, and we have had 3 or 4. Oh, we did another one for Bamboo Bash. Didn't fund. We just released that one direct instead because I still believed in the game. And then we had another one, a crazy one. This is back in the day. This is for what's Queen's game that did so much money? They're Spiel des Jahres. They won Spiel des Jahres. Settler, what's it called? Imperial Settle? No. Anyway, we did a game where they had never done a Kickstarter before, and Queen Games is like, we don't know how to do that, and you have to be registered in the U.S. at the time. You can't do it as a German company. So I'm like, I'll run it for you. So we launched this game, and it went crazy. It was over 100,000 in like a few hours, but they didn't tell the distributors or stores or other people that we were doing it. They got mixed messages like, well, when you're releasing this on Kickstarter, when are you going to release it? Is Mayday doing distribution for you now? What's going on? And he's like, no, they're not doing distribution. And it kind of got really convoluted and weird. We had total rights to do it, and it was only to help them out, but they kind of threw us under the bus a bit. So we ended up canceling that one because of all the weird blowback we got. A bunch of like larger distributors got really mad at them for doing it that way for some reason. So anyway, we have had a few other ones over the years that didn't fund very well or didn't fund at all. We've had probably 5 or 6 that never funded and we canceled, but very few.
Sure.
I'd say 10%. But those are great too because they tell you don't make that game.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, like you said, if it saves you $50,000, I mean, a company like yours and of your size, that's life-changing, right? And the other
absolutely tanked this for sure. Yeah. Did you ever find that spreadsheet? I can pull it up too. Can I post a link on here somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me find it. It's coming up.
Yeah, and I believe you're talking about this one right down here.
Mayday Kickstarter history, it's called. Let me grab it real quick. Let me hit share.
Yeah,
I guess my video
is the one I've got.
Come on. Man, it's taking forever. I think I just copy and paste it here. And then let me pop it in here for you.
That is the one I've got. And it looks like this one is probably the same thing. But I just appreciate how forthright you are with this because more and more people are asking for accountability, for communication. Backers are getting a little bit more demanding. And when you have a mythic that destroys your confidence in the site, right? And I don't want to be judged the same as everyone. And we have had some late Kickstarters and we've had some problems and we haven't fulfilled on time and that happens, but we're at least letting people know, hey, your risk here is it might be a year late. The yellow ones there are the crokinole ones. So if you scroll down, you'll see a bunch of yellow highlighted ones. Those are all the different crokinoles we've done over the years. And so I have a separate subcategory at the bottom that totals it. That says how many backers we had with crokinole. And you can see that in the red is fulfilled early or late and how many backers we had and all that. And at the very bottom, we even have numbers. And all of them link back. You can click on any of those and go right to the link of the Kickstarter. I love Google Sheets. We have a lot of distributors in other countries too. And it used to be that we'd have them call up, hey, where's this product? Hey, when did this ship? Hey, how much do we owe you? And when we first started out, I'd keep it in my head. And then I'd have to write it down on a piece of paper. And now it's like, okay, we create a Google Sheet for every one of those guys. And if they ever want to know where anything is, they can click right on it. And they can see exactly when we shipped what and when they paid us and how much they owe. And they don't ask me any questions because it's all there. So I have a separate Google Sheet for every single customer we sell to that's a larger customer, either store or distributor or another country. Anything we do, we have Google Sheets for it. And then it's just so much easier to manage it. I find the data amazing, and the fact that you've kept this and you provide it to your backers. I'm really impressed with that. I'm in an industry where full disclosure is one of the more important things in the industry, and so to see this is extremely refreshing.
Yeah, there's another one for Imperial Publishing too on any of their stuff. We have one that they've only done 4 or 5 projects, but we keep one for them as well. So it's pretty awesome. I love that information. It holds us accountable and it also keeps my feet to the fire. I know if I fulfill it late, it's going to go on the sheet forever. It's not going away.
Right.
And people's experiences don't go away either. They're going to remember. So
yeah, 100%. I mean, I have backed Kickstarters and I tend to back it. I'm the backer that backs it and forgets it. Like I don't need the monthly updates.
Micromanage it.
No, I don't need to invest that much of my life, into when is this game coming?
Yep.
And I mean, I've waited like 3+ years for a Kickstarter to show up. And and then I'd spent good money on it. I'm trying to convince my wife, like, no, I swear to God, that game's going to show up. But it is really, it's really awesome when you can at least say, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is this. I've got a good track record. Because unfortunately, like Mythic and other people like them, like really make really interesting games, have great ideas, and are just bad or the business side, maybe. That's me speaking without knowing anybody or anything.
That's true. There's a lot of people in the industry that started with an amazing game, and it just went so well that they just became a company. It wasn't that they set out to be a company. They're a designer at heart, and now they're a game company. And a lot of them have the names of the companies as their names. Steve Jackson Games. I don't know what Steve Jackson, I'm sure he's a great businessman. He's been in the industry a long time, but he started with Munchkin and didn't probably expect to be a business. I went in the opposite. I'm like, this is a business first. I have the accounting MBA. It's got to make financial sense to do anything. And I'm not saying other people don't have that goal, but the business is where that's the thing I enjoy even more than the games. I'm not a gamer first and then a businessman second. I'm a businessman first. And so if the deal doesn't make financial sense, I just won't do it. Even if I love the game, I can't let my hobby rule the bottom line or I'll go out of business. So.
Right.
I think I think you nailed it right on the head of the nail is why a lot of, well, not a lot, but why some fail is that they've got an idea and they're designers, but don't have business experience. Don't crunch the numbers to the extent that you have.
And I've seen a lot of them that go and spend too much on a booth because they want to look like they're faking it till they make it, and they blow 80 grand at Gen Con or Essen, and they look amazing. But when that bill comes due, man, if you've overspent, like it's a shock to the system. I have a Google sheet for every single convention we go to, and I have exactly how much we had in revenue day by day and sales, profitability, every expense, everybody's hourly rate, everybody's overtime, all the shipping, everything's on there. And bottom line, did it make us money or not? And if Origins 2 years ago, that spreadsheet showed I lost 10 grand. I'm like, I'm like, why am I going to this? I'm sorry. It's just not worth it anymore to me. It's not worth 10 grand for me to go there and be able to go eat the ice cream down the street. That's amazing.
Right.
Whatever. What's her name? Jenny's is great, but man, it's not worth 10 grand. So it's got to make sense financially for us to do. And there's marketing, there's other intangibles, but you got to make some money at some point. So if you overspend because you want to be showy, geez, I'd rather just show up in my U-Haul and hand load everything and just. It's ghetto, man. This is a ghetto industry. I had a friend of mine who was working for us, and his wife was in a bigger industry, and she's like, what are the owner and the president of the company doing unloading boxes and putting together a booth? You guys are the big wigs. I'm like, dude, I'm not hoity-toity enough for that, man.
Yeah,
when I go to the warehouse, I'm cleaning the toilet. I'm going to pick up more boxes at Walmart. Whatever I got to do to help them is what I got to do. And I'm not above it, because if I don't know how to do it, then who does? I know how to do everything in the company. Well, almost everything. There's a few things now that I don't know how to do, and that's annoying. But most of it, I develop the systems, or at least understand how to use them, because I don't have anybody else to rely on.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, and I think people take that for granted, because if you would have told me that Mayday Games was like a 8-person, 10-person endeavor, I'd have been like, what?
It's 8, and 2 part-timers is 8, so that's 6 really.
But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I see Mayday stuff all the time. You just assume, oh, that's a big company, right?
Yeah.
Like you just assume everybody's Asmodee, when really like most of the companies are just a handful of people, probably single digit, and then.
Now we employ probably 400 or 500 people in China over the years, and but they're not my one factory. I don't own the factory, but we're helping a lot of people out, I'm sure, but. And we even had a lot of blowback about producing in China. I'm like, well, if we didn't produce in China, we'd have to charge quadruple what we're charging for all of our products. And then the 8 of us would also be out of work. Like, what good is that going to do? So, I don't know. There's no easy answers.
I don't know that there's an answer to that question. I mean, I know, and as a Hoosier, I know Terraforming Mars was originally produced in Indiana. Those components are famously bad. The card quality is not great. The cubes, wore off very quickly. It's not a dig on Stronghold or any of those people. They tried something out, and they had a game that was very, 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 very popular. But at the same time, I don't know anybody that went like, oh yeah, like I never replaced anything from my Terraforming Mars and I played it 20 times. It's like, no. Everybody has gotten stuff, I mean, even Stronghold ran Kickstarters for deluxe components.
It's a really simple calculation for me. I've had quotes from a lot of US manufacturing. Things like Dead Man's Draw, it's a small little card game. It should be good, right? But I just look at the cost to produce it in China, plus all the shipping, plus all the customs, duties, all the overhead, all of that versus doing it in the US and not having to pay the freight and getting it quicker. And the numbers still aren't even close. If they were even close, if they were close, I don't like paying shipping in China. We're burning diesel across the ocean to get it here. It's ridiculous. But I can't produce it for that because people in China will work for so much less.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't have I've lived over there for 6 years and I've visited dozens of factories. I have family that are working in factories now. It's not a terrible life. They choose it, and they actually have more disposable income than a lot of Americans who are making, you know, much more money because their room and board is paid for and they don't have a lot of overhead, and they send 80% of that money they do make back home to the hometown to support their families. And
right, because don't they travel from their provinces to go there and
and then they get free room and board, and you get 2 meals a day for free, and they have some little bits of insurance, and their cell phone bill is $6 a month. And if they want to go eat out at night, it's $1.50. And so the $800 they have a month that they make, it's not much, but they get 600 of that that's disposable.
But if you look, I mean, the economics are different. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? You know,
it really bugs me because invariably I'll find somebody saying, "Oh, it's child labor." Like, dude, you've never been to a Chinese factory, have you? I mean, I've walked into dozens of them, and that's not the case. It's adults that choose to be there, and they're not there out of the next best choice for these people is going back to their hometown and farming, and making a sustenance living where they've got to work massive hours for even less money, where they're just basically growing their own rice and surviving. And so as bad as factory work is, it's a whole lot better than the next best choice. And a lot of them have been raised out of poverty. The numbers their salaries have more than doubled since I've been going over there. It used to be that it was like $300-400 a month. Now it's almost 8 or 9, and they still have a hard time finding people. So it's raising so many people out of poverty. And not that I want to do stuff for America too, but I don't know how we got onto the subject. It's probably pretty controversial. I don't know either,
but
I'm sorry.
I guess at the end of the day, though, right? I mean, I work for a major corporation. I mean, at the end of the day, everything is dollars and cents. You know what I mean? Yeah. Mike works at a car auction. Everything is dollars and cents. You run your own company. You know, everything is dollars and cents. Yeah, Jeff is from Weather Vane Games. He's working on a game called Rahode coming out.
Nice.
And I mean, that's just kind of the reality of the situation. You know, unless everybody wants to start paying $700-800 for their board games that we're costing between $50 and $100.
You know, I would love it if Apple came out with an iPhone and said, okay, this is the one made in India or China and it's $1,500, and here's the US made one and it's $6,000. You can shop it. You can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And people, if you want to pay for it, if you want to do it, that's totally okay. I'm not against the market having a decision there. I wish that were a viable option, but I'm too dang cheap, man. I would just always buy the $1,500. I mean, that's still a ton of money, right?
Sorry, Seth, you're not Apple.
I know. I can't afford to make that choice.
Now I'm curious because I know you just threw out like a random number. Your iPhone produced in China versus the one produced in the United States was 4 times more. What's the percentage difference to manufacture it in the United States?
And all in delivered to me is about 4 times more. My cost for a pack of card sleeves, my cost for a pack of card sleeves would be higher than what I'm wholesaling it to distributors. My cost. So I would have to quadruple my MSRP. So a pack of sleeves you're paying $3 for would be 12 or 15, probably 12 would be okay. And I've gotten quotes. I'd love to do it. It just doesn't make sense. So maybe we'll do a crokinole one day, and we'll have a $500 version that's the same quality as our $100 version, and see how many bites we get. People just go to Canada and get it made by hand, which is exactly what you do at the factory. There's no shortcut in that, right? Yeah, Mexico is a viable option. A lot of people are going to Vietnam. India is a great option if it wasn't for the corruption and the lack of infrastructure. India just doesn't have any infrastructure. We've gotten a couple of products out of there, and it's just ridiculous. Anyway, it's a good option too, but it's just the quality's not there yet. So China has done such a good job. They've made us so dependent on their products, and there's so many containers going in and out of there too. It's crazy.
Well, and again, it's the key word is infrastructure. China 1,000,000% has the infrastructure, and so until anybody else catches up, I mean, I learned about Chinese New Year because of Kickstarter. And now I know. Yeah. Now I know anytime that there's like a Kickstarter, like
delivering in February or March, you're going to get the excuse. Sorry, I didn't know there was a Chinese New Year. It's delayed 3 weeks.
Yeah, if it didn't ship before January 31st, you're not seeing it for add a month of time, and it just is what it is. But yeah, no, I think that yes, I mean we would all love to say we want to buy stuff that's made here, but I don't want to pay for what is made here.
When you put dollars and cents to it, it's hard to justify.
Yeah. And I don't fault anyone that is running a business, to make money. I mean, that's the point. It's
a hard decision. It's hard to keep your salaries tight. And I remember this is back a few years ago, but when Seattle first passed their, I don't know, it was 12 or it was $15 an hour, I think was the minimum. And I had a customer service lady working in Seattle who was I was only paying her $13.50 or something at the time. And she's like, hey, you have to give me a raise. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, no, it's $15 an hour here. I'm like, no, I don't. Sorry. I'm going to hire somebody for $12 an hour here in Utah instead. Yeah. Because that was I could find someone for that. I mean, we pay more now. We didn't spend as much as we should have. And prices have gone up a lot. Everybody's making a lot more, but it was like, sorry, it's not a thing. I don't have to pay you that. I'm not in Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's a hard thing. I'd love to pay everybody $100,000 a year.
Sure.
I'd have to charge triple our prices or whatever, right? So can't do it.
My experience Chinese New Year, all the highways free of charge, and therefore into parking spots.
I'd rather pay the fee than run the roads Chinese New Year. You don't want to travel during Chinese New Year in China. It's just getting to my wife's hometown is about a 3-hour drive from where we have an apartment in Foshan, which is west side of Guangzhou. And she lives in the interior of Guangzhou, in Guangdong province. And it's about a 3-hour drive normally. And during Chinese New Year, it can be a 15-hour drive. It's just people literally parked on the road because and they're all on that road because it's free. Like she said, you don't pay the toll, right? So you know how we pay it, like the gas has like a tax involved in the gas. Rather than gas tax, they do it on a toll system. So every 50 kilometers, you got to go through a toll, and you're paying like it's about 20 cents a kilometer, but that doesn't get charged during Chinese New Year for those 2 weeks or so. So people want to drive because they're saving themselves $10. But time value of money is not a thing over there. It's just gross money.
Yeah.
The mentality over there is so different. I first got over to China and I'm looking for, I was getting in an office and I looked for this secondhand furniture and I paid like $100 for the furniture, right? Or I was going to pay. And the guy that was helping me out, it's like, let's go to this other place and see if we can get it. We should be able to get it cheaper there. I'm like, I'd spent 2 hours picking out the furniture. I was ready to buy it. He's like, let's go over there. So we spent 3 hours going over there, checking out other furniture. And it was like $85. And I'm like, he's like, look, see how much I saved you? I'm like, you cost me 3 hours of my time to save me $15.
Right.
I'm not a $5 an hour. He's like, no, I saved you $15. That's real money. That's 100 RMB. I'm like, dude, time value of money, man.
Yeah.
There's no concept. The concept of time value of money is people will stand in line for 2 hours to save $1.50. I'm like, I won't. But my time is more valuable than that. So that's not a thing in China, though. People will just spend their time saving money.
That's why I buy the Disney Fast Passes, because I don't want to.
If you're already there and you've already spent $5,000 to be there, spend the extra $100 to save yourself double the rides, right?
Yeah.
We do that too. If I'm doing something like, if I've paid a lot, if it's next door, it's a different thing, right? You can go there every day of the week, go on a Thursday afternoon and ride 3 rides and go home. That's different. But
right.
You're paying hotel. You better maximize your efficiency there.
Yes. 100%.
Okay, we're off the topic. Just a little bit of board games. Do you have any other ones, Mike?
No. I actually think it's fascinating to learn more about the manufacturing process in China, because it's probably one of the things we've talked about that I know the least about. So it's kind of interesting to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's changing a lot too now. Before the pandemic, there was no focus on automation in the factories for the most part. But now, the last few years, a lot of factories have put a lot of time into automation. And so you see a real interesting, as you're getting quotes from factories, the price differences are quite stark. It used to be they were pretty close. But now you'll see factories that haven't automated, and their price for, say, a specific game is $10 a game, right? Well, this other company that spent most of their profits for the last 3 years on automation is coming in at $7. And they're doing stuff with 2 guys that the other factory is doing with 6. And it's just amazing how different the quotes are coming. It used to be they're all pretty within about 10% of each other. I know you'll be surprised to hear this. I keep a spreadsheet for every game and every quote. And every game I quote out to 5 or 6 factories. I put in how long it took them to get back to me, what their price was, and comparing apples to apples. And I always quote, but I don't go back and forth and go, okay, you said 7. Well, hey, you said 10. Can you beat 7? I don't ever do that. I'm saying, you give me your best price. I'll take the lowest, and I'll let you know. I won't tell you who I'm going with, but I'm like, here's factories A, B, C, D. Here's their quotes. Here's where you came in. Just do better next time. And I keep their feet to the fire on price that way with the 4 or 5 factories that I trust. But the pricing has gotten really interesting where they've spent much more in automation and over the last few years. I've never seen that before, and the prices are reflecting it. So there's 2 factories that have spent a lot of time on automation that they're just cheaper than the other ones by 25, 30%.
Wow.
So it's crazy. I'm so glad I'm quoting multiple factories. I'd be dying.
And again, a company like your size that you have to consider those things, right? I mean, you're foolish not to. Absolutely foolish not to.
I want to talk about this. Is kind of an interesting subject. There's been I've heard it from 3 or 4 different factories now saying, there's other people in charge of the quote system than the owners in a lot of these larger companies. Say Simon. I don't know that Simon's involved in this at all, but
sure,
I do all the quoting myself. I'm the owner, so I have all the incentive to make it the lowest price possible. I'm like, look, don't try to wine and dine me when I'm there. Don't try to get me to go to the KTV and spend a few $100 on me and make me feel happy. Put it under the bottom line price. That's all I care about. I don't want you to take me to the tea ceremony and have to talk through all this mumbo jumbo and getting to be friends. I'm here for business. Do you want my money or not? And give me the lowest price.
Those are my favorite customers.
We can be friends later.
And they all say, guess what? I want to spend time with my family too. I want to go home. I only do this out of obligation. I'm a sales guy, but I got to do this. And I'm like, this is how I want to do business. Yeah. Well, a lot of people have a purchasing agent or a full-time guy who's over that or person who's over that. And they'll be like, we've had these guys come to me and say, hey, you're not the lowest, but if you give me a kickback of $1 a unit directly to me, I'll do it with your factory, or 50 cents or a quarter, whatever the numbers are. And I'm not saying it's happening every time or everywhere, but if you're a larger company and you're not doing this yourself as the owner, you're exposed to this where you could have a purchasing guy who's getting 10 grand on the side every print run and not doing it at the cheapest or the best factory for your best interest. Because unless it's the owner, man, if you're making 40 or 50 grand a year as a purchasing agent, you can double your salary doing this nefarious thing over a couple. Man, what do you do? And I've had factories say this is happening, and how do I compete with this? I'm like, I don't know, man. You will never have that problem with me. So I'm telling other companies, man, you got to watch out for that. If you're not doing the quoting directly, it better be your, brother-in-law or somebody you really trust. I don't know. I just don't know how you do that. Wow. Could you imagine if your cost per game is up $1 a unit on a $30,000 print run and you don't even know? What do you do? And what does the factory do? Yeah. The factory, and some of the factories may offer it. I don't know, but I've had a lot of them that's like, we don't ever do that, but we're getting this and we're losing bids to companies that are other factories that are charging more, and because we refuse to pay it. And what do they do, right? Like that's so crazy. So that's a scary thing. It isn't happening in every case for sure, and it's maybe very isolated, but
sure,
any company, you got to watch out for that, right? Kickbacks.
That is crazy. I mean, it clearly has happened because you've encountered it. You know what I mean?
I've never encountered it personally. I've just had anecdotal evidence from factory, and it's only factory owners telling me this. The purchasing people may not even know about it. Like the reps and stuff may not know, but the owners have come to me in confidentiality saying, hey, what do I do about this? Like, how do you fight this?
Man, always rep yourself.
Yep. I'm never going to be big enough that I'm not going to be tightwad enough to not want to do it myself.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And I mean, we do other product like the game bags, for instance. There's a guy that I really trust. He helped me find the factory and helped me oversee the quality control. And I know he's getting a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% commission. That's different. I know that. He's helping me source the factory.
That's up front. You know that. Yeah.
There's no kickback where he's taking an extra 30%, or there's some secret hidden deal on the side where he's not taking me to I've been using the same factory to do our crokinole bags for 10 years. So I know they're reputable. So crazy stuff, right? The manufacturing is such an interesting thing. And you get so many crazy stories in the manufacturing. If you want to see a funny thing, I was at a factory and I'm like, they were using the Dead Man's Draw box to put their cell phones in at the assembly line. And I'm like, you know what this game is? They're like, it's a game. I'm like, how much do you think it costs? Like, what do you think we sell it for? And it's $20 for us, right? They're like, I don't know, $3, $4. Like, they have no idea what the games are, what they're making, what the value is. They have no clue about the industry at all. It's just like
goes down the line.
Production line doing our thing. What do we care?
Wow.
It's really fun. Just so many interesting stories at the factories.
I just really appreciate this perspective that I've never gotten.
Yeah.
I was going to say
most people don't spend time over there and don't speak the language. And it was really fun when I first started out and the word hadn't got around that I spoke Mandarin. I'd be in discussions. There was a crokinole factory 3 factories back when we were doing this in 2014, I think. And they were sitting in front of me talking and they're like, well, what should we quote them? And it's in Chinese. And they're like, well, I think we can get like, this amount of money from him. Like, okay, we'll offer that. And if he doesn't take it, we'll go down to this. And I'm like, I'm pretending like I don't understand what's going on. And then they have a translator there. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I can go that high. I think this is, and it's just hilarious. It's like seeing people's faces because I look like the least likely guy to speak Mandarin in the world. Total gringo, right? So they break out a little Mandarin. They're like, what? Blows them away. Hey, Andrew.
That's awesome. No, I mean, to Tim's point, we've had a lot of fantastic guests on the show, and no harm, no foul to any of them. But the back end of the manufacturing, I've learned more from this conversation than maybe any guest we've had. We've had a lot of great guests, but I've learned a lot from this. It's really interesting.
The factory. The funny thing about the factories is a lot of times it's just an individual family who started a factory and they're running a factory and they don't need that many clients to make really good money. They mark it up pretty well and they do a good job too. But the factories themselves are not these huge monolith companies that make, they may have several hundred employees, but the owners may be, a husband and wife team or somebody who was a sales rep who went off and started their own company and they have 4 or 5 big companies that they continue to get contracts from, and that's enough. So,
wow.
They're not that big of companies, a lot of them.
So when does Seth Hiatt buy his own manufacturing plant in China?
Not for me, man. I believe in doing what you know. It's too. I actually talked to a factory about maybe starting a U.S. factory here to try to compete and do a made in USA kind of thing, and just the numbers don't make sense. I mean, they would know what pieces of machinery to get and stuff, but man, that's not my business. Too bad. Yeah, handling meetings in Chinese or don't, right? I was in I have a guy that works for us named Dave, and he was in Beijing with me a few years ago, and we were getting in this elevator, and these 2 Chinese ladies were saying, we got in like, look at those 2 foreigners, look how cute they are, look how big their noses are, it's crazy stuff. And I turn around and go, 哇，你们也还可以，好漂亮的，你们要小心一点，因为好多人会说中文这里。I was saying, hey, you guys aren't bad looking either. What floor are you getting off on? And you should be careful because not everybody's an idiot who doesn't speak Mandarin and stuff like that. And their jaws just dropped. And Dave was like, that was pretty fun. It's really fun it's such a fun experience to be over there and enjoy it and to really embrace the culture. I love it over there. It's a lot of fun. We try to get back there as much as possible. We try to be there 50% of the time. So we have a little apartment in Foshan, China. The apartment's 2-bedroom, 1 bath, just enough for my wife and I. And we pay, let's see, 22. We pay about $150 a month for for the rent. It's crazy. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's near where my wife has some family, so it's not a nice upscale area by any means, but it's great. It's a great landing base, and it's like cheaper than a storage unit to put our stuff while we're there. Right. So who cares, right?
Right.
Like a year's rent is less than a month of my mortgage. So not that big a deal.
Seriously.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's less than your property taxes in some places.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Oh, and then you have kids that take it for granted that you speak Chinese.
Yeah. Well, my 3 kids all speak Mandarin too. So it's really nice because their Mandarin's better than mine. And so it's been really fun. My son works for Netflix in Southern California. He got a degree in computer science a couple years ago. Makes crazy money. These are the people buying the houses. I'll tell you what. Anyway,
sure.
He has people on his team that he's kind of a low key. He doesn't like to brag about stuff, so he doesn't bring up his Chinese. And he has people on his team like a few weeks ago who are like, it came up that he spoke Chinese, and they are Chinese people, and like what just floors them, right? Just blows them away because they're just so unexpected that they speak. My daughter's 26 and she graduated high school from a Chinese speaking high school there. So she graduated high school there. So they all speak it really well. It's crazy.
That's awesome. I wish
it's our secret language when we're out and about.
I wish I was bilingual. And you speak multiple languages, right? More than just Chinese.
I speak some pretty good Spanish, but I speak Portuguese better. I lived in Brazil for 3 years. So my Portuguese it's so frustrating. After 6 months in Brazil, I spoke great Portuguese, and my Chinese is still not as good as my Portuguese. And that was in like 95 last time I lived in Brazil.
Wow.
But it's just an easier language to remember and keep up. And no one ever compliments me on my Portuguese. It's not, people go, wow, that sounds amazing. Wow, but Chinese is such a strange language because to be fluent in it or to even sound halfway decent, you have to really hit your tones right. And it sounds just weird. And it's really, I was really self-conscious learning to speak it. To say it right, it's weird. Like that's why people compliment you, because it sounds crazy. Like even the word Shanghai, how do you say it? Shanghai is the word in Chinese. But to even just use those tones when you're saying it is just so weird, right?
Right.
Like it's you have to lose your self-consciousness to be able to get good at it. So be around it enough to really imitate the tones, right?
I had a very good friend in high school that she was Vietnamese. Like her parents, like in their house, they spoke Vietnamese, and it was always crazy because whenever I was over there, I would just hear a string of stuff that I couldn't understand, and then I'd hear Tim, and then a bunch of other stuff. And her name's V, and I was like, V, what's going on? She's like, oh, they're just asking if you're staying for dinner, blah, blah, blah. I was very close with her family. Like, we were really good friends, like, and everything. Yep. But yeah, it was always just kind of like, okay, I gotta take your word for it.
Yeah. But yep. That's awesome. Well, any other good questions for us, Mike?
Do you, aren't most of your games language independent?
Most of them, but not all of them. It just depends on the game. I mean, I like the language independent. Like Ahoy Kittens is language independent when you're playing. Of course, we don't have the rules in other languages, but Google Translate on your phone, you can get a lot out of that. But we try to do that. And we also try to make them color independent for those who are colorblind. Like with Viceroy, we added symbols and different edges to the cards to make it, different. It didn't detract from the graphic design, but you could still use the graphics to kind of differentiate besides colors. So we try to do that for sure, and all the games we can. But I won't not take a game because it's not language independent either. Like the one we just did, Sanssouci, is also language independent. It's really good, that one. The one from Michael Kiesling. It's a good one. So yeah, a lot of fun. We definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, my buddy Bob, co-host, he's colorblind, so he's got and I'd never even thought about it until we started playing board games together. He and I have been playing Magic together and role-playing games together for years. We get into board games, and all of a sudden he's, with reds and greens, he's having problems, and I'm like, why?
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I'm color. Yeah, I just never knew. It never came up. Like it never mattered. And so we definitely talk about that. And then when we started doing the show and stuff, that was a thing we brought up a lot because it's like, okay, people want to know.
So. Yeah, you definitely want to check that out. You don't want to overlook those people. I want to include as many people as I can, Sure. If I could put it in Braille, I'm happy to. I want more customers. Who doesn't? Like, I have a financial incentive to let everybody be able to play, right? Like, who wants to exclude anybody? Not me.
I mean, for multiple reasons, and then the business aspect of it as well, right?
Just financially, right? I want to just make more money. I got to sell more copies, and why limit it, right?
Right.
It's already such a niche market. So,
you've pretty much covered all the questions. There's one other one that was brought up in the Discord. You've used a wide range of art in your games. What goes into picking an artist?
A lot of it, we have kind of a bank of artists we've used in the past and we kind of keep on file. We have like a Dropbox folder for that. And then if we have a specific game, then we will try to match the artist to it. And it does come down to price too a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just totally depends. But it's not an exact science for sure. A lot of times it's like Sanssouci, for instance, was licensed from a company. They already had the artwork. Bootleggers, another one. A lot of them already had the artwork, or like Dead Man's Draw was from the app already.
Right.
So if we have existing artwork, that's even better. But a lot of our games, we just try to find an artist that kind of matches it, the style of the theme.
I did not know until tonight that Dead Man's Draw was the app first, because I went and got the app because I owned the game, the card game.
Really?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Go to a search for Dead Man's Draw on Kickstarter, and you'll see 2 of them up there. There's the one we did that did like 57 grand, and then there's one that they tried, but they weren't a Kickstarter company and didn't really know what they were doing. And they put the whole rule book was on one card.
Oh, right.
It was not enough to explain how to play the game unless you played the app. Like that's great if you already know how to play the game, but it didn't explain the game enough. So we definitely revamped it and took a lot better shot at it, which is I think why it did well. And we knew what we were doing. We had a built-in audience. So happy for that one. But yeah, it already had I don't know about millions, but a lot of downloads. So it kind of already had a built-in fan base.
Well, that was sort of your Kickstarter. Like you knew, okay, I'm going to need a lot of copies of this game because they know that it's going to go.
Scroll further down. You might have to go to Kickstarter and search for it.
Gotcha.
I think you have to go to Kickstarter and search. I think it's harder to. We have had several other ones. We did a Captain Carcass, which is a re-theme of.
I was going to ask you if you guys did Captain Carcass too, because I saw that version, but I was like, I've got Dead Man's Draw.
Yeah,
that's the one I bet.
The Captain Carcass came about because we had a French company called Bombex, and they wanted to do the game. They wanted to license it, but they wanted to do their own unique art. And we had the same thing happen with Hobby World in Russia, where they got their own art. But I'm like, with Captain Carcass, I'm like, we'll do that, but you have to let us use the art for the US too, because I thought the art was really cute. So we did the same exact thing with their art, just translated it to English and launched it as a new game. So it was an interesting thing. Yeah, that should do it. Scroll down and see what you get. Oh, you got to search, huh? Oh, is it there?
I had it. Well, once I
there we go. There you go. Let's see. There, the far right one. See, it says Stardock, 81% funded. If you click on that, you can see the presentation, and it was just going to be a pack of cards, basically. See, they had it. What was their goal? 20. Scroll it. 15. See, you know how happy I am that they didn't fund. It's so close, right? They fund that, and our conversation's over. They just print it and they're done, right?
Right.
But if you scroll down, you'll see just how it was presented. It was a totally different thing.
Oh, wow. Huh.
You can see this is years ago too, so you can see how the presentation, how much it's evolved on Kickstarter now, right?
Yeah.
This looked like, and they're a huge company,
text heavy.
But back then, this was like cutting edge, right?
And now you would struggle to fund with this type of.
Look at how little is on there, and there's no link to a rule book. There's so many things that's like a requirement. They have video of the game and play, and they don't incorporate any of it into like animated GIFs or like. It's just amazing. What's the price point? Let's see, $20 for the basic, right? Early backer.
No content creator coverage or anything.
Nothing at all. This is 2014, right? If you want to see how much the industry's evolved, just look at those, right?
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Absolutely.
I was super happy that it didn't fund. As soon as I didn't fund, I think I sent them an email the next day. Said, "Okay, man, let's get on board here." And they've made way more than what they had as their goal and their royalties over the years. So they're happy too.
Wow. Yeah, well, it's a win-win. You know what I mean? Their game is in more hands. Again, I went over to the app because of the card game. You know,
look how close those were. So they failed in November 2013, and this is August 2014 when we funded ours.
Nice.
So it wasn't that long after. Just long enough to reboot the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, and the video, I've always liked the video on this one. It was really well done. See, 77 grand versus 13. And what's the difference? It's a board game company with presentation that understands the market a little better.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy that's such a little thing.
I put the shipping right at the top. Some of the images have even stopped working, it looks like.
is very, very old hyperlinks. Huh?
This is super old school too.
Wow. Yeah.
This is just the top. This is where the Kickstarter actually starts right here. That stuff above is stuff we put in last minute, like late pledge, how much it is, this stuff. This is where the actual Kickstarter starts right here.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And notice it's a limited edition for the first one. Like there's exclusive stuff with this unique box art that was only for that version.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Big difference, huh?
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Crazy.
For the days. Crazy.
Yep. When we first started doing Kickstarter, it was just like I was so blown away when we put that get bid up there the very first time. I was just shocked at how many people backed it. I had no idea. Hey, look, you backed it. Look at you.
I did. This is one of the first games I backed. I bought this. Oh yeah, there you go. I bought this actually as a Christmas present for somebody, and they
really.
So yeah,
I want to say it was 20 or 25, maybe even been less. It might have been 17 or something. We try to
16.
keep them as low as we can.
Yeah,
seeing it did another 71 grand.
Got it on my iPad.
Yep, there's the app. Yep,
right there.
That's awesome.
I spent a lot of time on that app.
It's a fun one.
Yeah,
I like it a lot too.
Well, I could do it solo. I used to drive a delivery truck, and sometimes you'd be waiting for
hours,
a dock to open up, blah blah blah, things like that. So to have, you got an iPad, you got a something you can play games on, and it's like solo game, and I can bang out a bunch of rounds of it really easy. Oh my gosh, it's the best. The best.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite experiences doing projects like this, I think it might have been sleeves or a game, but I promised it by Christmas, and the container got to Long Beach Port in LA. And the way it works is from Long Beach, if it's a container, a full container, then they will railroad it to the Union Pacific Railroad in Salt Lake, their yard. And then I have a different company pick it up there and deliver it to us locally. But if it's LCL, which is less than container load, it's on pallets. And I think this was like 6 or 8 pallets of product. It was going to they're going to put it on a truck and consolidate it with other product going to Utah. It was going to be like 2 or 3 weeks before they could get it out, because it was really busy in November, I want to say, or early December. And they just wouldn't have got it to me in time to fulfill it for Christmas. So I was looking, they're like, it's coming into port. It's in port. It's been released. It's going into this warehouse in Long Beach, and it's available for pickup today, but you won't get it for 3 weeks. And I said, not going to happen, man. So I looked at flights, and it was like 2 hours from then I had to be at the airport. We flew straight to Long Beach, took an Uber over to the Penske truck rental, and got a one-way truck rental, pulled up to the dock there, waited forever for it to get there, to get I didn't know how the paperwork worked, because I always have an agent do it.
Oh, sure.
So it's super easy, but I had to get all this extra paperwork I didn't know how to do. And I had it load up, and then we drove from Long Beach back to Salt Lake. I ended up stopping in Mesquite for the night. We had really bad traffic going through LA during rush hour, and it took us 2 days to get back. And this big old Penske truck drove right to the warehouse, unloaded it, and then went and returned it to Penske. Cost us about $2,000 probably to do it, but it got everybody their stuff in time for Christmas. And
it saved you 3 weeks. And wow, yeah.
And it would have cost me probably $1,200 anyway to get it there and shipping from the port. So it wasn't like a huge amount of extra money, but it was 2 days of my time, right? So
yeah. Well, it's nice if your wife goes, and then like you've at least got like some company, and sometimes
it became a fun adventure.
Yeah,
and
stuff like that.
And it was awesome, because I have the type of wife where I'm like, hey, we're leaving. She was still sleeping. I'd gotten up early and was working like I usually do, and she slept in. I'm like, hey, Kate, we're leaving for the airport in 20 minutes. Throw it. And we were I think we flew Southwest, and we couldn't have a checked bag. So we think we had a backpack each and no liquids kind of thing. And it's like, throw some stuff on, get into some sweats. So we're heading to the airport in 20 minutes, because we had to have an Uber pick us up too. We didn't want to pay for parking at the airport.
Right.
And so it was like 20 minutes later, and like within 2 hours, we were on the airplane. It was crazy.
That is wild.
It was fun.
But again, those kind of things are sort of very easily go unnoticed, I think, by just, general consumers. But then at the same time, if Mayday delivers, they deliver early, you get it on, you get it for Christmas, you go, hey, look, it cost you 2 days. In a little bit extra money, but now you've got that story to tell. And also you've got all that extra customer satisfaction. I mean,
and if I'd been in a third party warehouse, none of that would have been an option.
Oh,
it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I wasn't out here where I could do it, and thinking outside the box going, yeah, I want to do this. Like, it's an option. I can do it. I could have driven down there too and then had my wife drive the car back, I guess. But it was like, we got to get this done now. We're going to do it. We stayed a lot of nights getting the Kickstarter fulfilled and meeting our goal and all that. It was great. I just love doing stuff like that, though.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Because I can't tell you how much it does suck when I do start to pay attention to a Kickstarter because I'm getting the updates like, oh, it's import. And then it's like, well, it's import, but it still means I'm a month away from getting it because it's got to get to the distribution center. And then from the distribution center, once they process it, blah, blah, blah,
And then they got to fit it in their schedule to get their labor to actually ship it out. There's a lot of times where like the hour that it arrives at our warehouse, we have stuff that day going out. Like with the crokinole, there's 950 in a container. We get this container. We don't have anywhere to put a container of crokinole in our warehouse, right?
You got to get it out, right?
So we know when it's coming that morning. We schedule with UPS to deliver a 52-foot semi truck. They drop off the trailer and they're alongside each other. We have the crokinole. We're literally pulling out all the ones that don't have any add-ons or anything we have to mess with, and we're slapping labels on the outside of the box and putting it right into their truck. And I'm like, do we get our pallets back? We can put it on pallets. Like, you can put it on pallets, but you're not getting them back. So we're like, screw that. We don't want to lose our pallets. Those cost us $10 a piece. And so we're floor loading this whole container, 52-foot truck trailer full, and then UPS comes and picks it up the next day and it's full. It's crazy because we don't have anywhere to store it. We can't.
Right. Yeah. We used to, now that this is the opposite. When I worked at that medical supply warehouse, we'd get a container of wheelchairs and they're just stacked. They're not palletized. So they're stacked.
They're just floor loaded. Yeah.
Yes. And so we'd have a guy on a forklift would bring a pallet and we'd bring them out. We'd load them up, shrink wrap. That guy would drive the pallet off. We start pulling more out. He'd drop off another pallet. So we're loading that pallet while he's dropping.
Done that many times.
Oh my gosh.
3 or 4 of us palletizing stuff as we pull it out. And during the pandemic, when the container, the most I ever paid for a container from China to Salt Lake was $27,000 for a 40-foot container. The price now is about $5,000, like I mentioned before. But when they're that expensive, you floor load everything because you don't want wasted space. It's too expensive.
Top to bottom. Yeah.
So everything, little packages of card sleeves. The master carton's about 10 pounds, but it's really small. We'd have those floor loaded, and palletizing those takes forever. You never think you're going to finish. And reaching the top of that container sucks. But man, you can't. But now there's $5,000. I'm like, and I'm getting old. I'm like, no, screw it. Everything's going on a pallet. We're losing about 20% of our space by not putting stuff on top and things. But man, so much faster to pull those out. And just the tricks you learned with the pallets, like when you have a 40-foot container that's loaded with pallets all the way to the door, those first 2 are really easy to get out of the with the forklift, right? The second 2 suck, right? Well, we finally figured out we take the tie downs from your car, like if you're trailer haul, you wrap those around the second pallet in, and attach it to your forklift and just slide that out, and then you can grab it.
Use the
Once you have that third pallet out, then you can use your pallet jack and get into that fourth, and the ones behind are easy. But that third one, figuring that out, there was never an easy way to do that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a dock. We still have no dock.
Right.
So we have a dock, but it's uneven and it's not the right height. It's an unusual size. So what the dock is perfect for is, the U-Haul trailers where you have the little ramp you pull out.
Oh, yep.
If you pull a ramp from the U-Haul trailer directly out, it goes directly on top of our thing, which is lower than what a dock would be. So it doesn't work for anybody else but U-Haul. So before we had a forklift, we'd take stuff. I go rent a U-Haul, take it to the warehouse, have them load up the U-Haul with the forklift and a pallet jack, and then we would run the pallet jack across with the pallet of sleeves across this ramp, and the pallet jack just barely fits. If you don't take it perfectly straight, you lose the pallet. It goes over the edge. And it was so scary. So dumb. We're just all praying that it's going to make it over this. And it's got the bumps and the ridges on the ramp, right? So bad. It's so much better now.
That's crazy.
Anyway, the growing pains of a small company is really crazy.
Listen, the necessity is the mother of invention, though, right? I mean, you get so much better at some things because you're forced to troubleshoot and problem solve, and and you take your lumps. Sure. You do it in a way that the lumps you can take aren't devastating. And
we spend so much time right now, labor just going back and forth from the storage units, because we don't have everything in one place, and we keep a spreadsheet, of course, of what's in each individual storage unit, so we know what's in where. But if you have to get another pallet of Dead Man's Draw, and it's behind a bunch of card sleeves or some other game, you have to pull out 4 or 5 pallets and wiggle around in there, and it's brutal. It'll take you an hour to get to that pallet sometimes. You waste so much time without having a large enough warehouse. So that's where we eat it.
Because if you got a large enough warehouse, you can bin locate things, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You just
in our new warehouse, it's going to be 35 feet tall. We'll have 4 or 5 pallets high. We'll have a space for everything, and it'll always be instantly accessible. Be so much better. Save a lot of labor costs.
That's wild.
So it'll be awesome.
Wild. Yeah, most people. Designer as well.
Most people look at my wife drives by houses, goes, "Oh, that's a nice house. I want to live in a house like that one day," or coveting somebody's car. Not me, man. I'm going into Home Depot and I'm like, dude, that is a nice looking forklift. Look at how narrow that is. You could put so many pallets in this thing. And I'm looking at other people driving by the interstate, and I see these warehouses. I'm like, man, if I had a warehouse like that, I'd be loving it. Like that's the stuff I love. I'm like, look at the quality of this. He has a nice pallet jack. I need a new pallet jack,
Yeah.
Stupid stuff like that. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome though. That's awesome. And again, the great thing and sort of the unexpected benefit for us having you on is like I've gotten a whole new perspective, a whole new angle, like what I mean, on the game industry. Mike said it earlier. We've had a lot of people on and we've talked about a lot of different things, and aspects of the hobby, but like this is a new one. This is a new one, and I love it.
The behind the scenes nitty gritty of the logistics and the quotes and the factory stuff is totally different, especially for a company that has their own warehouse, right? And the other thing that's interesting is publishers' websites. I go to their websites and it's like, this isn't sales driven at all. It's like you have to really dig to try to buy stuff. And like, not to throw Rio Grande under the bus, I haven't looked at their website in a while, but it was more of we sell through distributors and stores and you can't really buy anything here. And I'm like, man, the whole point of a website is driving sales to me.
Right.
Like if you type in Wormspan sleeves, you're going to find us number 1 on the SEO. And we're going to be driving people to our website and trying to sell people stuff. I'd rather they get it from a local game store, and we push that really hard. But if they want to get online, I don't want them to buy it from someone else. I want them to buy it from me. And we have a MAP policy, manufacturer's minimum price policy, where they're not allowed to price it below a certain point, and they also can't sell it on Amazon. I think it's mostly Amazon. I think Amazon, eBay, and Etsy are the 3 we don't let people sell on. We sell those direct ourselves on there. And then they can sell on their own website if they want. They can drive sales there, but we don't let them sell on Amazon. That's like our baby.
Right.
So we sell a lot on there.
Yeah. I am, again, I've been obsessed with Sleeve Kings just because, again, I will go to my game store. So like our game that I've been obsessed with, it's called After Us. Wanted to sleeve it because it was, again, you're handling the cards and everything. But I went to my game store first. I was able to find sleeves, but if I hadn't, guess what? I'm getting online and I'm typing in, because it's like, how many sleeves do I need? Like if I don't have, you guys take all the work out of it. I don't have to, I don't need to know how many sleeves I need. I go there and I buy this bundle.
And it shows up and you got enough.
Yeah, because I'll use Heat was the most recent example. I forget what there was another one that I did through you guys and was so excited because it's like, okay, I'm going to buy this bundle. I hope it's great. I'm guessing it's good. The price is good. Like the price was really good. It's like, is this too good to be true? And so like I was actually texting Mike and Bob and I'm like, okay, my Heat sleeves just showed up. And so
it was like $750 though, right?
Yeah, it was dirt cheap, man. It was dirt cheap. I felt like I was stealing.
3 packs of 8807.
And so I'm like, I was giving the guys like updates. I'm like, okay, well, I've sleeved them. I'm sleeving them. Getting ready to sleeve them. Like, oh, they're good. Everything fits. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'm sending them the link. Like, okay, here you go. You can get your sleeve.
Yeah, I want to take the pain points out of the buying experience and make it as easy as possible to get what you want. That's the whole point of the website. And if you don't have the tools to do that, why make it harder on your customer? That's the thing that's hard for a local game store. If you have a game like Everdell or Gloomhaven or something that has different size cards, you got to get 3 packs of this and 1 pack of that and 4 packs of this. That's hard to do as a game store, right? Like to know, to find that out and to know that for that game. So we actually have bundles we sell to stores too and through distribution where they can buy that bundle that you're buying online. you can buy that bundle for them, and it comes in a blister pack with a little graphic on the front, and you can hang it, or you can put it. It's got feet, so you can set it next to the game. The whole idea is to have an upsell for the store,
right?
Because we started out, like I said before, when I was on eBay, we had a little game store, and I'm like, I can't supersize this game with anything. Like, what do I do if they come in and want to buy Dominion? There's no, do you want fries with that for the game industry?
Right.
So that's kind of where the sleeves came. That was the idea of the sleeves, is I want to sell more to those customers I already have. They already bought the game, and saying, okay, you got a $40 game. Do you want to pay $10 and protect it forever? That's a pretty good, it's an easier sell.
And items per transaction is a metric that you have to pay attention to. I mean, that, like in my job, that is a metric that we look at all the time. Right. And, and how do you upsell in ways that make sense? And how do you,
how do you get your existing customers to buy more? And how do you get more customers to come back more often? And what's the cost to acquire a new customer? I got to know all that stuff. And, the marketing to our newsletter, man, for our Black Friday, we only have one Black Friday sale a year. And it's like usually 35% off or something for customers. It's like 4 days. I think we extended it during COVID. People started doing these pre-sales where it's like a 2-week thing now. Right.
Oh, sure.
But the sales we'll do as much in those 4 days as we do in 2 months sometimes.
Yeah.
On our website, just because we drive those sales with our newsletter, and it's like we may as well collect that information and market to them, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's I think there's not enough focus on the business side of it for people, and I don't know how other people stay in the game, because we have the card sleeves kind of keep the lights on. They're kind of a perpetual. They sell pretty well. We don't sell a crap ton, but it's enough to keep the lights on. And then we have the games too. And between the two and the Kickstarters, it's enough to keep us in the game. And I just keep hoping eventually we'll hit that one big game. We're going to have a Catan-sized game where suddenly Walmart will want to talk to us. So,
Right.
I remember when Apples to Apples came back. This is before you guys probably even in the industry, but
I remember Apples to Apples.
it was Out of the Boxes. I think it was their second game they'd ever licensed. Was the name of the company, Out of the Box. And they licensed this game called Apples to Apples. And within 6 months, everybody, Toys R Us, Walmart, everybody wanted to be their partner, right? And that became like 90% of their business for several years. But they only had the license for 3 or 5 years. They paid a ton to get it renegotiated to keep it another few years. And then eventually that ran out, and they went to, bigger fish, because that was Out of the Box's entire company was that one game for the most part.
Wow. Yeah.
And I don't know if Out of the Box is even still around.
I don't know. Gosh.
They used to be huge when I first started. Maybe they are, but they don't have Apples to Apples. That got bought out by Asmodee, I'm assuming.
Are you sure?
Right.
Sure.
I don't know. Somebody else, maybe it was Mattel or somebody. Somebody bought it out.
It sounds like Mattel or Hasbro. Like any of those.
Somebody bought it out, and I think they gave the designer like $1 million or something to get them into the new contract, some crazy number. But that was the whole company, right? And if you have all your eggs in one basket, or you start getting complacent and you're not tight with your money, and something like that happens, you're done.
Yeah, you got to be ready. You got to be ready, and I mean, I don't know. I really hope. I got to ask, just because I love this game so much, and I've talked about it 100 times. I'll talk about it 100 more times. How did Ahoy Kitten do for you guys? How do you? Is it okay?
Marginal? It was fine. We printed a lot of copies of it because the neat thing is it was from Broadway out of Hong Kong. Oh, Mattel has Apples to Apples now. Good, thanks, Eric. So Broadway had the license for it. And Broadway is owned by a game factory called Longshore. And they do a lot of toys for Mattel, Hasbro. They've done some stuff for us, some of the toy elements. They're really good at plastic molds and stuff. But they have their own factory, right? So they already had the factory, and they were able to get the price down, the manufacturing price, really cheap, because they're producing it themselves and they're making the money on the license. So
okay.
It's really interesting too. Like with Sanssouci, we have the game, we have the license for it. We license it from another company, and it already existed as a game, and they did the art. They had the worldwide rights, and they'll tell us this happens all the time. We get a license from another company from another country, and they'll say, "Hey, you can license the game if you make 5,000 copies. It's say $15 a copy or whatever the number is. Doesn't matter. That's not the number, but that's a number." And me, where I've been doing manufacturing in China so long, I can look at the components of this game and get to within about 50 cents of what the manufacturing cost will be.
Sure.
Because I know the component prices and I know what it should cost. And I'm going, okay, but this game, I know I can make it for 10. If I know I can go to a factory for 10, your implicit licensing fee is $5 a copy, which is at retail that's 10%, and at wholesale that's 50%. Like, so I go back to them and say, look, I love the game, I want to do the game. I'm not talking about Sanssouci specifically, but every game that we license from other companies, I push back and go, how would I pay you $1 a unit royalty? I'll pay you 5% or 10%. Give me a number and let me take the game and produce it myself at my own factory, because I know what your cost is, and you're not cheating me by bundling your cost with your royalty. That happens all the time.
Right.
And usually they don't even want, usually I end up not getting the game because I'm pushing too hard on the price. And then sometimes they're like, well, look, I'm already doing it in 6 other languages and we're bundling it together with these other companies and we get a better price that way. And so we'll do it that way. But it's so much better for me that I know the pricing. So I know how much I'm getting gouged with the licensing, because I would never charge 50% license to anyone. But if you bundle it, you don't know what you're paying, because it's like, oh, this is the price. And then you got to decide for yourself if it's worth it or not. And a lot of times it's just not. So I've turned on a lot of games that are great games that do. I've seen $1 million Kickstarters I've turned down, but not because the game wasn't good. It's because the price was not worth it to me. And you hear all the time people that lose money on their Kickstarters, right? Well, I won't lose money on a Kickstarter because the price is going to be good, you know? Mm-hmm. And so even with Ahoy Kittens, I think we did maybe 1,000 of them on the Kickstarter, or maybe less, but we made a lot of copies because the price was so dang good. And I believe in the game. It's such a good game that I think it's going to sell over time. It hasn't really sold a ton, but it's slowly moving.
I'm doing my best.
Evangelize it, brother. You got to talk about a commission structure here. Let's get a multi-level marketing thing going.
That's right. Yeah, it's not a pyramid. There's just one person, and then
just
2
one
people,
level,
and then a few.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because you're talking about that, and I think again people don't always take this into consideration. There's a very, very, very successful game on GameFound that I even personally backed, and was shocked to find out that they did not make money on that game. They actually lost money. And basically the second Kickstarter was them trying to sort of
start to make money,
you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, you don't, like for me, the outside, not somebody that has dealt with that side of the industry, you go, oh, that game made $1 million on Kickstarter.
They gotta have made a few $100,000,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You'd think. And the way I price it, I always price it to the point where however many copies we sell, we on Kickstarter we'll produce about double that. Is kind of what we usually do.
Oh, sure.
And then with doubling it, we get to take a little bit of profit. We make some money on the whole thing, but then we have basically free copies in the warehouse. Is kind of how I look at it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, I may have only sold 1,000, but I got another 1,000 I'm going to sell at a good price over the years. Right. And I'm not as big a hurry to sell it because I didn't pay for it. But it's still a real hard thing. Like Viceroy, we sold a ton of that, and we did a reprint of it, and it sold really well. The first batch on Kickstarter, I thought the Kickstarter was going to sell maybe 40 or 50 grand. It did like 280,000, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
It was huge. I thought we were going to print 2,000 copies. We did like 12 or 15,000, some crazy number for us.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, I can do a money grab with an expansion. We did an expansion, and the expansion was great. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think we did like 4,000 copies. I think the Kickstarter did about 1,000 maybe, or 1,500. We did about 4,000. Well, I didn't have enough copies of Viceroy by the end. After another year or so of selling it, I'd run out of the Viceroy original game, but there wasn't enough demand to reprint it. But I had like 500 or 1,000 copies of the expansion still in stock, with no real way to sell it without the base game. Who's going to buy it, right?
Right.
So I'd made enough money to cover all of it with the Kickstarter for the expansion, but it still was so painful. It's the first time I've ever done this where we actually took 3 pallets of that product. It just wasn't worth storing anymore, and I couldn't get my money out of it. And what am I going to do with an expansion without a game? I took it to the dump. I literally dumped those games out of the back of my little crappy wooden trailer that I use to haul stuff when I have to, and dumped it in the landfill. First time ever, and hopefully last time. But there was just nothing else I could do with that game, and it was taking up 3 pallets of space that I didn't have.
Right.
Like, why am I storing this? It's going to be here for 6 years, and then I'll dump it. Just may as well get rid of it. So that was a really hard thing to do. I've dumped a few little extra pieces and overstock stuff here and there in our dumpster, but never that many to that extent like that. It's a shrink wrap product, and it's like, man, what do you do? Like, even if I gave it away, nobody would want it.
Sure, so, right? Because they don't have the base game. So yeah.
Yeah, I tried to sell it for Black Friday special at 90% off or something, but they had to pay the shipping to at least make my shipping. I don't want to lose money on it, right?
Right.
And still we sold like 20 copies or something. So it just wasn't worth it. So it's a really hard thing when you have overstock copies you never sell. We've had a few games that we had a really hard time moving. We overproduced them, and like the Kickstarter didn't as well. And we used to do that more. And it was really interesting. We came back from COVID. It was last year. Gen Con was the first full year back, right? Where it was really all on again.
Yeah.
We had all this. We had probably 4 or 5 pallets of product. We kind of just been slowly accumulating over the years in our booth at Gen Con, and we just took it on the pallet for next year. Like, we'll sell it next year. Well, some of the stuff is just slow moving. We sell 10 copies a year at Gen Con. It's like, we're going to take us 10 years to get rid of this stuff, and we're storing it and paying $10 a month pallet plus pallet charges in and out. I'm like, we got to get rid of this stuff. What can we do? So last Gen Con, I came with a dream to get rid of this 4 pallets of product, and I brought some more product of good new product and just a few more products like Dead Man's Straw that I knew would sell. We brought more of it, and we brought 200 white boxes with some stickers on them that said mystery box.
Oh, yes.
And so the day of Gen Con setup, we're there, and we have 5 or 6 pallets more product than we can even put at our booth. But I went around that afternoon through all the halls, and I wrote down the 8 or 10 booths with 2 hours before the end of setup, wrote down those numbers, went to the organizer and said, can I get one of these booths for me to do these mystery boxes? I brought a banner and a little stand-up thing that said mystery boxes, $200 MSRP plus for $50. And we didn't have the space to even store the products. We put them all in mystery boxes, created these 200 mystery boxes. And I'm like, look, if I can get 10 grand out of these at $50 a piece, it's, 40 grand worth of product. But if I can't sell those at my booth for, 75% off, it'll dilute the product, and people won't buy that much of it.
Right.
But I put it in the mystery boxes mixed with new good product at good MSRP. Like, we even put some Sanssouci in there, which is a $50 retail game that's not, we don't discount it.
Right.
And we put those in some of them. We put a lot of new popular games in them. And we ended up getting a booth, a 20 by 10 booth for like a discount because it hadn't sold or some people didn't show up or whatever. And the first day I'm like, well, if we sell these 10,000 over 4 days, it'll pay for the booth and we'll make some money and we'll get rid of this product. It'll be great. Right. So day 1, we sell all 200. We sell out. I had no idea. And I'm like, okay, I'm going back to the booth. I can pillage some more stuff and make another 30 or 40 boxes out of the product. We probably have too much of this, too much of that. We probably could sell it, but who knows? Made some more. So after day 1, I'm like, but I could probably if I could sell some more, why not? So I go around to all the other vendors in the hall. I go to all these other publishers and go, do you have any junk on your pallet that you're not going to sell? You want to sell it to me at 85% off MSRP? I'll put it in my mystery boxes and no one knows it's your product. It's not going to dilute your brand. You can still sell it for whatever you want at your booth, but mix it in. I got 12 publishers to sell me a crap ton of stuff. We made over the next 3 days, we made another 600 boxes and sold them all. We sold 800 of these boxes and sold them for another 40 grand. And it was, and I made a little bit of money on theirs, but I also got rid of all my old stuff, and everybody who opened them was super happy. It was crazy.
Well, I'm like, there's that thrill, right, of the unknown, and if they're actually getting good stuff in there, like, who cares?
Yeah, and they're mixing in stuff, and some of the publishers, like, they had one game that was like $120 MSRP. He's like, I'll give it to you for 95% off. No one will appreciate this game at that price, and we have a lot of copies. We got to get rid of them. So we had different deals going on. And we got some new product too that they just brought more copies. They're like, we brought 250 copies thinking we'd sell that many. We definitely overstocked it. But by the time I take it back to my warehouse and pay storage and the in and out shipping, I'd rather sell it to you for 85% off because I'm still making a little bit over my cost. And I've already got them here. So it ended up being a really interesting win-win for all of us. And so we're going to start doing that. We're actually going back to Origins with the little mystery box booth. We're not bringing Mayday, but we're bringing mystery boxes. And we've been putting them together at our warehouse and putting them on pallets and getting ready to ship them. And what we don't sell at Origins will then move to Gen Con. So,
oh my gosh.
So
Mike, it's not like we're buying mystery boxes.
Yeah, it doesn't make us a ton of money, but it's really good. And throwing in Ahoy Kittens in there.
Yeah.
Because I made so many and it's a full MSRP game, that extra $20, people love it. Like everybody was happy with what they got. I would say there's probably 3 customers out of 800 that weren't happy. Wow. Because it's you get one game in there you like and you've made your money back. It's like, hey, I got Sanssouci for $50, plus I got 5 or 6 other games. They're like, everyone was stoked. So it was.
Wait
really
a minute, 3 Viceroy expansions.
No, yeah, we wouldn't put any. That would have been great. We did actually put Viceroy with expansion, but we'd value the expansion at half of MSRP before the 80% off or 75% off.
Nice.
But we wouldn't put anything in there that wasn't a standalone game or and expansions. We always say, okay, we'll take your expansions, but they're at 92.5% off, so half the price of the because expansions just aren't that valuable to anybody. I don't feel like they shouldn't be full MSRP. So we definitely overpriced it. And the other thing that was neat is if I just put 800 boxes out there and say pick a box, I don't think we would have sold that many, but we'd put all the same stuff together of like 10 or 20 of the same thing and labeled it box A and box B, box C. And so people could choose which of the boxes they got. And some of their friends would go in and go, okay, pick the J box and then I'll see what you got. And if I like it, I'll buy one of those too. I'm like, I don't care. Go ahead. People will be looking over people's shoulders, see what box was what. But they had a perceived choice and a real choice too in what they got. Granted, the first
feel is random.
Yeah. And they could choose it. And granted, the first probably 200 of them, there's probably a lot of overlap because there wasn't as much variety. But adding new publishers was so great because a lot of companies do that with their own product and it's just all their product. And that's not as exciting. But you got, I can say, okay, this has R&R, it has Queen, it has Japanime, it has Tasty Minstrel, I don't know, whatever other publishers they have in it. It's like there are 10 publishers that are in here and you won't get more than 1 or 2 games from any one publisher. Well, that's a lot more appealing too, right?
Yes.
So.
Okay, so they want to find Gen Con Exhibit Hall. Where's the mystery box?
So you look for the mystery box booth. We'll put it on. We actually made a website too called boardgamemysterybox.com. You can go there and we'll have it on there for sure. We'll advertise it like where our booth will be. You can sign up for our newsletter too, and we'll spam it out to everybody when it's time. But I think it's the same booth. So now at Gen Con, we have a 20 by 20 and now a 10 by 20 as well for the mystery boxes. But the mystery boxes, we actually made a profit on that because we had already covered all our overhead of flights and hotels and all that with the original booth. So the other booth was at a discount and it was a last minute thing. There we go. Yep. And you see that chart there? It's all about being open, right? So I'll say, okay, I won't tell you what game's in them, but I can tell you, hey, game 1 is in boxes A, E, and L. So if you don't want to get duplicates, you can go through the spreadsheet and say, okay, I want to get this box and that box. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
I'm not telling you what game it's in. And it even tells you the MSRP of each game. So you can add them up and say, yeah, that does add up to 200 or more.
Mm-hmm. That's rad. Oh, that's super rad.
The problem has been that we have to charge like $15 shipping on the boxes. So people aren't buying them like I thought they would.
Oh, sure.
They don't sell very well. Online. They sell like crazy at conventions. We sold them at SaltCon. We brought 10 the first day. It's a small little convention. We ended up having like 60, I think, or 80 that sold. So there's what the booth looks like right there.
Yeah.
It was literally just that banner and all those boxes.
Wow.
And we're just giving them out. By the end of the third day, we run out of boxes. So we had just like other people's master cartons and it looked so bad. The organizers came over and yelled at us and like, you can't have open cardboard sitting here. It looks terrible. We're like, I'm sorry. We'll do better. So we moved the booth banner up to the front of the booth and kind of tried to hide stuff that way.
Hide the stuff behind it.
Hide the cardboard and just put out those little purple stickers that we spray glued onto those boxes. It was crazy. If you hit the FAQ, I think there's some more, or maybe the mystery box. I think there's some more pictures on that one, I think. Scroll down and see if there's pictures there. Nope, maybe it's the FAQ. Yeah, this is all the lore. Here's some more pictures of the box. You see how it's starting to go into cardboard? We ran out of the white ones.
Oh,
there's my wife.
There's the plain brown.
My wife was just in the back behind those banners, just putting boxes together for 4 days.
Wow.
And we were running out. It was crazy.
What a great idea, though.
It's an awesome idea. I just wish they'd sell better online.
Yeah, no doubt.
We have a whole bunch of stuff that's really good quality. We just can't move it. And that's fine. We'll sell them at the conventions. We may go to PAX Unplugged. We may go to some other conventions this year.
Well, you know what's crazy is, though, that I think it's like a perception thing, right? So if I got to pay $15 shipping on a $50 purchase, it's like, that's outrageous. But if I spend $15 shipping on a $200 purchase, for example, you're like, oh, that's not that bad. It's really weird how the mind works, right? Because
maybe I should change it to $60 and $5 shipping. I wonder if that would sell more.
Maybe. I mean, my wife,
or 65 and free shipping.
My wife sells stuff on eBay, and that's a trick. That's a whole thing. Free shipping, but you build the shipping into the cost, right?
Yeah. And we do that a lot with our Kickstarters too, where we'll just charge really cheap shipping. It's like why not? I mean, the best margins I'll ever get is on the Kickstarter because it's such a good audience, right? Even with the Kickstarter fee, it's still better. You know, and it's interesting too, is I've solved a problem for a lot of other companies who have overstock product. They don't know what to do with it. Where do you go with it? If nobody wants it, what do you do? Like, you have to start taking it to the dump or paying for storage at a third-party warehouse. It's brutal. So I have people that are like, hey, I want to send you 1,000 of this. I'm like, no, give me 50, give me 100. We're just starting small. And I don't have the room either. So storing in a storage unit sucks.
Yeah. I know one that does a lot of that is AEG. They have a lot of mystery boxes.
They do. Yeah. You know, another really crazy thing, because I know all these factories, right? I was like, wait, why am I thinking so small? I started going to the factories. I talked to them at Gamma and said, do you have any publishers that have left you in the lurch that have gone out of business or that haven't paid and you've made too much product for them and maybe they just haven't taken it because they aren't paying? And they're like, of course. I have pallets. I have containers of this stuff that people never paid for and the company went out of business. Yeah, exactly what Eric's saying. And so I'm like, yeah, well, why don't we do this? If you want to give me how much you pay, give me your manufacturing cost, not even what the publisher would have paid. Give me your manufacturing cost. I'll help you recoup that. You send me the product. I'll throw it into mystery boxes. And some of that stuff's out of print. So I've actually bought a container of a company that's now defunct. Some of their products have been out of print for 2 years. I'm putting it in mystery boxes and it will sell for MSRP online.
Yeah.
It's a $50 game that's selling above MSRP in some places. And I'm putting it in mystery boxes because I paid, way cheap on it.
Now I want to buy a mystery box.
Yeah. There's some really good games in some of them. I'm like, if people knew what was in here, they'd be buying them. But then I even tell the factory, I'm like, look, you don't even have to sell it to me. Just go tell that publisher that's dragging their feet on making the payment that if you don't hurry and pay and let me take it, I'm going to liquidate it. Because now they have a channel for that. These companies these factories don't know how to sell the product. They don't even know what they have.
Yeah.
And they don't know the value. Yeah. And it's not they're not in that business, right? So for me to give them that, it just gives them teeth to help to try to get a customer to collect and go, look, if you don't sell this, if you don't buy it, then I'm going to, liquidate it and sell it to somebody else who's going to put it in mystery boxes. And it helps the factory too, but it also solves the problem for other publishers that have overstock. We're not selling a ton of them yet, but if it keeps growing, who knows, maybe we'll sell more and it will be a growing thing. But even if nothing else, it's helped me move product that I wouldn't have gotten away out of my warehouse anyway.
Yeah.
500 copies of a couple of different titles that just weren't selling very well that I don't have to pay for storage anymore.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really cool.
That's brilliant. And again, I can see it doing really well at conventions, especially because when you've got box A through, J, for example, and people are watching other people open it up and you're like, whoa. Like, he got that one. Which one's that one? I want to buy that. Which one's
that? Yeah.
Yeah. I want to buy that one,
Yeah. There's a lot of, there's so much in the sales stuff. There's so much understanding the psychology of it, right? You got to understand your customer and how you can help entice them to want to buy it. And a lot of times I'll be like, oh, you didn't get a good game? I'll tell you what, go down to our booth and you can buy a Sanssouci at half off.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't lose anything. I'm selling it for $25. That's what I sell it to distribution for. And it's already sitting here and I make a customer happy. And we don't do that a lot, but if we get or we even say, oh, you already have this game, or they're a kid and they get kind of a racier Japanime game in there or something. Right. And it's a family. Like, okay, we'll swap it out for you. We're not, if we have extra copies in the back, why not swap it out? It doesn't hurt us.
They accidentally got that spicy version of Tatokoro or whatever.
And then you get and you get the other guys who come in and just want the spicy ones. We'll make an Xbox this year that's just for those guys.
You need like the trade table right next to you could open it up. Okay, now everybody can swap what they want to swap over here.
Yeah. So one thing we're really thinking about is those bags, having those at Gen Con this year. We'll have them at the mystery box booth too. It'll be like, okay, you got this box full of games. If you want to buy a bag at, $50 off, you're buy the bag for MSRP and get a free mystery box. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Those are good ideas. You put a mystery box in the bag, right?
Yeah. You can now carry it out and you got a nice bag to go with it. So yeah, I just love thinking about these sales pitches and ideas. One of the big things I've learned over the years at places like Gen Con is you never want to give the customer a discount. You want to give them more product. So say they buy 10 packs of sleeves and they're checking out and it's $30 or whatever. They're like, don't discount it to 25 because they bought a lot. Give them 2 free packs.
Right.
Like, that's so much better for me because I have so much less cost in the extra packs and I kept their money. I want to keep their money in my pocket. So we always try to do that. This is a real strategy for selling. I try to never discount. And it helps too for other companies. We'll be like, hey, you got a new game? You want to buy a case of sleeves? You can give them out for free. You pay me wholesale. You're making money on it. And it's an excuse to have them buy now, because so many people will go to the conventions and go, oh, what's your price? Let me check Amazon. Let me check market. What do you call it? Miniature market. Or some other website. Check the Tanga of the day. See if I can find the cheapest.
I can tell you that there's been times where it's like, well, I'll buy it at the convention because it comes with this too. I get it at the convention. I mean, 100%. 100%. And the other thing, you
gotta have an exclusive, right?
Yeah.
And we try to at least discount or give a free. We'll give a pack of sleeves, or we'll say, hey, buy 2, get a 3rd game free out of this overstock game or whatever, right? What's really interesting has been the ding and dent. We don't have this problem anymore. We had so many copies of some games. We couldn't sell this, $30 game for $10 or even $5. No one would buy it. It's like, well, it must be a crappy game. But if I have a dented version and I put it in the ding and dent, they'll pay $10 for it, or 15 or 20, because they see it's dented and then they see the full MSRP on the shelf and they see a ding and dent. So I have on occasion taken a hammer to some corners of some boxes.
Hey, the shrink wrap's torn on this one. I guess it's technically a ding and dent.
The employees like to joke about this one time where there was one game and they wanted a ding and dent. The last one just sold. And they're like, do we have any more of these, Seth? And I'm like, let me check underneath. And I look underneath and I just slammed the corner of the box down on the concrete. Like, I found another one.
Wow.
So
they keep popping up.
They were laughing their faces. The customer saw me do it too. I'm like, look, I'm just kidding around. If you want, I'll give you a new one for that price. It's fine. But here's a ding and dent. And we put it in the ding and dent. It sold in 5 minutes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So
and again, the psychology of the customer is an amazing thing.
Yep. But if you buy a brand new box and it comes dented in the mail, man, that's not good, right? Like it's
a bummer, but it happens sometimes.
We try really hard to be careful with our packaging to have that not happen on us.
Yeah.
Because it's something you just want to avoid at all costs if you can, especially when you have a big game or like a crokinole board. It costs you $40 to ship it, then you got to have them ship it back and ship them a new one. If they paid $100 for that board and you're shipping it 3 times, you just lost all money and probably ate some on it too.
Yeah. It's all gone. It's all gone at that point.
Luckily, that doesn't happen very often.
Sure. Well, and also you've gotten better at the, refine the process, get better at the process.
Our packaging is improved. We also put full insurance on it. So if there's a hole in the box, I'm not going to eat that. I'll just make I'll put a UPS claim on it, right? Or a FedEx claim. So unless it's a clear manufacturer's defect, like there's something wrong with the surface or something, obviously that's not but if it's like the box is beat up like mad and the rim is off of it, that's a shipping defect, right?
Right.
So
we
gotten a lot better at getting UPS and FedEx to eat some of that. But when you're sending out, I remember one year, this is 2022, and we did all our shipping in 1 week. My UPS bill for the week was $80,000. That's a lot of Sky Miles, though.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah,
sure is. Wow.
But man, those are brutal to pay for. Luckily, the customers paid for most of that. But it's expensive.
But still, man.
Yeah.
Sticker shock, though, right?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Oh, well, Seth, we could go for 2 more hours, but I'm not going to do that to you or Mike or myself. But I will say, please come back on and join us again sometime.
Okay. If you guys get some more questions, you ever feel like you got enough to fill up I got lots of interesting stories, and I could get into how we started Imperial Publishing and why that worked and why Sleeve Kings. We're competing with ourselves against Mayday. There's all kinds of crazy stuff, and how we got Swampan Asia, and like so many interesting things. What conventions we decided to go to. There's a lot of stuff. All those meetings behind the scenes we could talk about with other publishers, and so if you guys get some more questions together and want to have me back on in a few months or a year or something, let me know.
I would love to have you back on. And then anytime, if you've got something, like obviously right now we're kind of landing right in between 2 Kickstarters, but you got something you want to talk about, reach out. If we got room in the schedule, man, there's a landing spot. This was really fun. I've seen multiple comments where people appreciate your candor, and I love the stories. Like I'm a nerd. Like I said this earlier, I'm a nerd for this stuff. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
And again, right. Like I work in sales, Mike works in sales. I'm also like just picking up little, tricks, along the way. but it's been awesome, man. I really do appreciate it, and I can't wait to go up to you at a convention and talk to you and shake your hand.
Come by and say hello for sure. We're only going to Gen Con or Gen Con Origins, but with only the other booth. I won't be there, and then Essen, and then we go to Gamma. So those are the 3 we go to.
I'll see you at Gen Con for sure.
Sure.
They will
come say hello to our booth. We're in 2102, 2120, something like that. The same booth as last year. Always the same.
Always the same. Well, I'll know where to find you because I worked DV next to you that one year.
Oh, yeah. Well, nice to get to know you guys, Tim and Mike. Appreciate it. And if you guys have any more questions or follow-up, let me know. And thanks for evangelizing Ahoy Kittens. If you can document 10, Mike, send me. I think you've sold enough. I think, Mike, send me a message after this and give me your address. We'll send you out an Ahoy Kittens for you, okay?
Hey, there we go.
There you go.
I don't get played a lot.
Yeah,
that's good. I figure everybody that gets a copy, they're playing with other people who are going to like it too. That's 4 more copies I've sold, right?
So. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm getting ratted out here. Yeah, I can go further for sure. I talk too much anyways.
Well, I see your people are still hanging on too. Everyone's listening and liking it. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a pretty good. We usually have a pretty steady, viewership, which is really nice. And again, I feel like the conversation's been really interesting. I think people appreciate the insight, and the stories. I mean, that's kind of what we do on our Wednesday shows. So
yeah, that's great. Well, I've really enjoyed it. The time's flown by. 3 hours. Good gosh. I guess I do have to get the cab. Jeez, when I saw those times on your guys' show, I'm like, oh, that's not for me, man. That's a lot.
How does that happen?
No, it's because you're talking about what you're passionate about, man. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a done deal. Get me talking about games or my kids or my wife or my hobbies, man. I'm there. I'll talk all day about that. Or saving money, man. So many people. I just love saving money. So if you want a credit card referral, I got a spreadsheet for all the credit cards and when to hit them. Freaking, I've got so many retaining fees from Amex and Chase this year. It's been amazing.
See, whenever we plan a Disney trip, like a year out, my wife picks a couple of cards. We start paying our bills on those cards just to build up those points for either airline miles, rewards, blah, blah, blah. She's really good at that stuff. I married up in that for sure.
Yeah.
So
I'll show you my spreadsheet real quick here and I'll let you guys go. Here it is. I got a spreadsheet for everything. Oh, there it is right here. There's my current, I don't know if you can see that. Well, get in there. There's my current miles on each of my cards.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mike, you could take some tips from Seth down here, man.
I'm telling you, I'm always trying to find ways to have my money make more money and etc. So
it's fun. Something else we can talk about next time is card counting. I hate gambling. I'll never put a dime into a slot machine, but I love playing blackjack, and I keep a spreadsheet on my expected value, my earnings, and my profits and losses, and it's a lot of fun.
Game in the game.
Yes, that's what it's all about. I love the math of it.
I could get us like 10 more viewers for that show alone.
That'd be fun, man. I keep a spreadsheet on everything. I'm up 50 grand in 3 years.
Wow.
So, it's a fun hobby.
That's the trick. Anyway, keep it a hobby and you're fine.
Good stuff. Right? Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Mike. And I will talk to you soon. I'll look for your email with your address, Mike, and I'll send you out an Ahoy Kittens.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Seth.
There you go.
Have a great night.
Great.
Seth, you've been awesome. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Again, continue to add questions. If you got questions, we'll pass them along. We'll save them up. We'll do another show with Seth.
Do it. That'd be great.
And from the Board Game Rundown, I've been Tim.
I was Mike.
Yes.
And I was Seth.
Yes. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
See ya.
We'll see you guys. Good job, Stonemeyer. A 7.3 repeating. Heating.